subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
White creature that blended with the frost was not a natural phenomenon at all, but a living thing. Slug 55. Section 55. The older Tsurui, having participated in the Second Shinobi World War, had certainly heard of the Sannin. He immediately became vigilant, looking around as if searching for Princess Tsunade. "Don't bother looking. Princess Tsunade isn't here," Sarutobi Ryo said coldly, glaring at the group. There were 12 people on the opposing side, and the leader, a Cloud Village ninja, had dark skin, a sturdy build, and a black lightning character tattooed on his arm. "You're Black Lightning Tsurui?" Sarutobi Ryo asked, taking a step forward as frost surged around him. The Cloud Village ninja, unable to see clearly, didn't notice that snowflakes had mixed into the frost. That was the phenomenon caused by the ice release chakra beginning to flow. As mentioned before, even with the same Kekii Genkai, different people can produce different effects. Sarutobi Ryo wasn't from the Yuki clan, but had learned ice release as an outsider. Strictly speaking, Sarutobi Ryo had created a new branch of ice release. Because Sarutobi Ryo's ice release couldn't be 100% the same as the Yuki clan's. With each step, wind and snow surged. Just as Tsurui was about to instruct everyone to attack, a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed, appearing in front of him. "Lord Eye?" The muscular man with short, pale yellow hair, radiating electricity, was none other than the third Reikage son. His appearance was extremely fast, so fast that even Sarutobi Ryo's left eye couldn't capture it. Relying on his right eye's dynamic vision, Sarutobi Ryo only saw a blurry shadow of lightning. "The location of the scroll that the woman hid has been found," I said, glancing at Nono-yu, and Tsurui and the others immediately understood. "Tsurui? Lord Eye, do you mean that she hid the scroll in another location?" "That's right. You go retrieve the scroll. I'll take care of them." With that, Ice Body surged with electricity, entering lightning release chakra mode once again. Sarutobi Ryo frowned, immediately feeling troubled. Fortunately, my Dai had come along this time. If he could seize the opportunity, Ruri's gentle fist might be able to injure Eye. After all, no matter how much you train your internal organs, they can't be as durable as rubber. "Young Master Ryo." Just then, Hitaki Tsukumo's team also arrived. Hitaki Tsukumo was extremely surprised by Sarutobi Ryo's sudden appearance on the road ahead. "Isn't that Katsuyu?" "Mr. Tsukumo, long time no see." The massive white beast lowered its head, its antennae swaying, and a sweet, girlish voice rang out. Sarutobi Ryo briefly explained the situation to Hitaki Tsukumo. Hitaki Tsukumo seemed enlightened. "If young Master Ryo hadn't come to support us, I would have had to choose between rescuing my comrades and retrieving the scroll." "Mr. Tsukumo, the information recorded in that intelligence scroll is very important." Just then, Nono-yu stood up. Her expression was solemn, and she didn't seem to be lying. "It records Cloud Village's development direction for at least the next 10 years. Simply put, it was Cloud Village's internal affairs and technological roadmap planning. Once obtained, it would reveal Cloud Village's future movements." "I understand." Hitaki Tsukumo nodded, knowing that losing that scroll would be equivalent to causing a huge loss to the Land of Fire. "Young Master Ryo." Hitaki Tsukumo looked at Sarutobi Ryo. Multiple late-night conversations, and those implications now seemed clear, allowing him to understand many things. "Teacher Tsukumo, please go and retrieve the mission scroll. Leave this place to us. And Dai-sensei, please make another trip to assist Teacher Tsukumo." Sarutobi Ryo immediately made a decision. He would have Hitaki Tsukumo and Might Dai go together to retrieve the scroll, while he and the remaining few would handle defending and rescuing Nono-yu. All right, having learned the location of the scroll from Nono-yu, Hitaki Tsukumo flashed away without the slightest hesitation, like a white lightning bolt. It's a type of body flicker technique. I immediately judged that it would be absolutely impossible to be this fast with normal movement. He also knows the hand seal-less body flicker technique. Oomph. This isn't your exclusive skill. After I finished speaking, his hair stood on end, and two lightning chakra-shaped spikes grew out of his shoulders. It's lightning release armor. In this state, Lord EyesNaruto are activated to the extreme by lightning release chakra, giving him the strongest reaction ability and movement ability. As the Cloud Village ninja spoke, I chased after him. 8 gates released formation, 4th gate open. Seeing how fast the two were, Might Dai shouted, and a surge of energy burst from his body. A green light flashed slightly on his body, and he suddenly accelerated, chasing after them at a dazzling speed. The three of them chased after each other, quickly disappearing into the vast wind and frost. Everyone, if Hokage, Sakumo, and Ice performance was still considered within expectations, then Might Dai's performance was truly astonishing. Especially Yamanaka Hei, who couldn't help but shout, "Are you kidding me? Isn't he a perennial genin?" Everyone, Sarui assumed his stance, about to order the attack. Might Dai's title of perennial genin was well known in the Leaf Village, but the Cloud Village didn't know about it. Therefore, they only regarded Might Dai as some hidden expert. But the next moment, Sarui's heart was filled with a strong sense of alarm. Katsuyu suddenly spat out a large amount of corrosive acid. Puffed. The moment the acid landed on the ground, even the rocks were melted. Almost in the blink of an eye, several subordinates died tragically. The others who dodged were naturally all skilled. Looking at their companions who had turned into a pile of concentrated acid wreckage, they were both shocked and angry. Boom! Before they could counterattack, a chilling palm descended from the sky, directly striking one person's head. An overwhelming force surged. Everyone present had excellent dynamic vision. Therefore, this scene became a slow-motion action. The Cloud Ninja's forehead first caved in and cracked. Then his eyeballs were squeezed out, and his brain exploded. The blood that spurted out was accompanied by a chilling cold and solidified, changing from liquid to solid. Only then did Sarutobi Ryo's murmur sound. Ice release crushing palm. With one move, the enemy's brain matter burst, and the shattered head emitted a chilling cold, kneeling in the frosty snow. Chapter 4. Katsuyu, I need you to help me unleash my Muzu. When using taijutsu to attack enemies, there's a high probability of having room for recovery or being healed. But if combined with ice release to create low-temperature attacks, things could be foolproof. The permeating palm force, with the accompanying chilling ice release chakra, will congeal the enemy's blood and freeze the muscle tissue, causing necrosis. In that case, even the Sage of Six Paths wouldn't be able to save them. This is equivalent to Sarutobi Ryo having a foundation of powerful physical damage, adding magic damage. The power of taijutsu naturally doubles. The type of move also changed from ordinary taijutsu to nintaijutsu. Sarutobi Ryo, with a large amount of theoretical knowledge and practical experience, began to combine his father's ninja arts professor talent to create his own ninjutsu. Just like Sarutobi Hiruzen, who integrated the second Hokage shadow clone technique into his shuriken jutsu, creating the shuriken shadow clone technique. Seeing Sarutobi Ryo's earth-shattering palm, the Cloud Village ninja almost all had shock in their eyes. Especially his palm. There's a problem. Soon, they discovered that this might be the ice release Kekkei Genkai. But how is that possible? The ice release chakra attribute should belong to the Mist Village. Yumino couple, you two take care of Miss Nonoyu. Ruri, Ehui, Katsu, the three of you help me flank. Having killed an enemy with one punch, Sarutobi Ryo's palm was still emitting a chilling cold. The big matter had been dealt with, and Hokage Sakumo had been rescued. The enemies in front of him could be slowly dealt with. Therefore, Sarutobi Ryo unhurriedly issued battlefield commands. Young Master Ryo? That title, the third Hokage's son, Sarutobi Ryo, Sarui reached out to stop his subordinates from acting rashly. His expression was solemn, and he began to repeatedly size up Sarutobi Ryo. During the Second Shinobi World War, the Leaf's main battlefield was the Rain Country and other small countries. Although they had also fought with Cloud Village, it was in the Whirlpool country. Sarutobi Ryo had not appeared. Therefore, in terms of reputation, Sarutobi Ryo's name in Cloud Village was far less eye-catching than in places like Rock Village and Sand Village. However, even so, the information that the third Hokage had 2 children was widely known by various ninja villages. For all those who became famous, their relationships with relatives and friends would be investigated by hostile forces. Sarutobi Hiruzen was naturally no exception. As the third Hokage, there were naturally many people who wanted Sarutobi Hiruzen's life. 56, Section 56, if you can't kill a certain big shot, killing his son is the same. This kind of thinking can also be considered one of the unwritten rules of the ninja world. Just like Tsukumo Hatake, he killed Sasuke's parents in the Second World War, which is Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law. The matter of targeting other people's families happens every day in the ninja world. It's me, as Sarutobi Ryo affirmed powerfully. The gazes of Sarui and the others suddenly became scorching. If they could kill or capture the Hokage's son, it would bring enormous benefits, whether to Kumogakure or to individuals. Ice release, truly astonishing. Sarui slowly raised his hand and grasped the large knife behind him. His knife looked like a huge kitchen knife, and whether it was his appearance or his figure or even the black lightning character on his shoulder or his weapon, all gave Sarutobi Ryo a sense of DJVU. He's called Sarui? Could he be Darui's father? Judging from the age and era, Darui was probably just born. The timing fits. Then, I need to pay attention to this guy's strength, because in the original work, Darui first became the right-hand man of the 4th Reikage, and later inherited the Reikage position, becoming the 5th Reikage. The Naruto world is a world of bloodlines. Like father, like son, if he is his father, his strength should not be underestimated. While the two were talking and confronting each other, Nono's eyes in the rear revealed an unbelievable look. But she deserved to be the walking shrine maiden, the strongest spy. Her expression returned to normal in a flash. Young Master Ryo suddenly appeared and unraveled the conspiracy set up by the 3 high-level officials. Could this be the Hokage-sama's intention? Nono thought about it and came to this conclusion. Hamura Mitokado, Koharu Udatain, and Danzo Shimura, the 3 high-level officials, wanted to ruin Tsukumo-sensei's reputation. The Hokage-sama probably knew about this, so he specially sent young Master Sarutobi Ryo to help. It's the young master's intention, Yamanaka Megumi reminded. Saving Tsukumo-sensei is entirely my young master's plan. Oh, Nono adjusted her glasses, her eyes showing more surprise. The Uno couple felt confused after hearing the conversation between the two. Save Tsukumo-sensei? What do you mean? Lightning release. Lightning flashed, and blue arcs of electricity surged on Sarui's large knife. The blade, wrapped in blue chakra, slashed fiercely. Clang! Sarutobi Ryo, on the other hand, also had the natural divine power of the Sarutobi clan. The two exchanged blows continuously, and the light of the blades danced. After separating, Sarui slid backward, leaving 2 shallow tracks on the ground. He crouched down, holding the knife with both hands, his eyes full of astonishment. His strength is on par with mine, and he can even use Ice Release Chakra to resist my Lightning Release cutting. Ice Release does not belong to any of the 5 elements. Therefore, it will not be restrained by Lightning Release. Collisions will only cancel each other out, and the stronger one will win. Sarui will help you. 8 Kumogakure ninjas took up their positions, ready to act. Rumble. Just then, with a loud, earth-shattering noise, a giant shadow was pressing down on them. If the momentum of Sarutobi Ryo and Sarui before was like tigers and leopards, then the slug at this moment was comparable to a dinosaur. It rushed straight from behind Sarutobi Ryo and pounced on the people who were planning to help. For most special jonin and ninjas with lower titles, large summoned beasts are invincible existences. In the original manga, the Chunin exams, the Konoha Crush Plan, Orochimaru's mass-produced cursed seal snakes, made even the strongest Ibiki Marino completely helpless, and said that it was not something that ninjas of his level could solve. What's more, mass-produced curse eel snakes are just trash fish, and slugs are top-level existences among summoned beasts. So, just like opening a Muzu, I saw the slug directly crushing half of the ninjas to death with a single bump and roll. Sarui's eyes widened, watching his companions die, making him grief-stricken. Lightning release. Black Panther. He put down the large knife and quickly formed hand seals with both hands. With a beast's roar, a chakra creation in the shape of a cheetah struck the slug like black lightning. Because this move was extremely fast, so fast that Sarutobi Ryo didn't even have time to remind the slug. So the slug was hit all at once. At the moment of impact, the Black Panther turned into an electric net, spreading to the slug's entire body, causing its body to twitch slightly. Taking advantage of the moment when the slug was hit, the other survivors cast spells one after another, and messy ninjutsu and explosive tags greeted the slug's face. Boom, boom, boom. After a round of indiscriminate bombing, the slug's body was blown away a little weight. These weights slowly wriggled, and if you looked closely, you would find that they were one small slug after another. Among the three summoned beasts, Manda, Gamabunta, and Katsu. Katsu has the strongest survivability and the highest defense. In the original work, the countless clones of Katsu could even take Pain's Super Shinra Tensei and protect the ninjas under him. Its defense can be called powerful. These small slugs slowly crawled towards the main body, and after a while, the slug propped up its huge body as if it were unscathed. Chapter 5. Sarutobi Ryo's ice release appears for the first time. This is Katsu. Sarutobi Ryo's eyes were bright, and he felt that he had signed the right contract. Such a powerful summoned beast is enough to help him solve the troubles of many combat scraps, so that he can concentrate on doing many things. As for Katsu's misunderstanding, it can naturally be slowly resolved after saving Tsukumo Hatake. Wind release. Sarutobi Ryo let out a low shout and quickly formed hand seals with both hands. Seeing this, Sarui couldn't care about continuing to attack Katsu, so he could only focus his attention back. Great breakthrough. The violent storm blew, just like a typhoon passing through. The eyes were instantly filled with frost and snow, obscuring the view. Without thinking, Sarui slapped his hands on the ground, and an earth wall rose from the ground. Dual chakra attributes confirmed his qualifications as a Jonin. The storm was blocked, but in an instant, a section of the knife tip pierced through the earth wall and spread over. Sarui jumped back, and a small opening was pierced through his chest. This was nothing to him, who had a strong physique. However, an extremely cold chill condensed the wound, making his breathing feel slightly uncomfortable. Sarui looked down and found that the wound had been frozen. He couldn't help but think of the previous encounter with his first companion. Once the ice release chakra enters the body, my mobility will be affected. Thinking of this, Sarui decided to use his trump card, Storm Release. He formed a strange seal with both hands, and the reaction of chakra surged violently in his body. In Yamanaka Megumi's perception, the chakra in the opponent's body was gathering towards his palms. Young master, be careful. He has. Nono also shouted, but her reaction was ultimately a beat slower than Yamanaka Megumi. She only had time to give this reminder. A blue-white light suddenly lit up between Sarui's palms. It looked as if a blue-white ball of light had appeared in Sarui's palm. From this blue-white chakra ball of light, a blue-white arc began to spread outward, just like the agitation of power. Storm Release. Laser Circus. Laser Circus is actually a transliteration of laser circles, which is photon laser, and directly translated is laser disc. Storm Release is a special Kekkei Genkai, most commonly seen in Kumogakure. This Kekkei Genkai combines the two chakras of lightning and water to fuse a new chakra attribute. Its essence is laser, which has a firing speed of 300,000 kilometers per second. Coupled with the characteristic of cutting everything, the attack power of Storm Release will be very exaggerated. However, This Kekkei Genkai also has various usage requirements. First of all, high-energy lasers, the closer the attack distance, the stronger the power. The farther the distance, the more severe the attenuation. Moreover, this laser, if it encounters special conditions such as snowy weather or foggy weather, will be greatly reduced in lethality. The sky of the land of frost is naturally filled with frost. 57. Section 57, but at this moment, the two were very close, and Sarui decided to take a risk. After all, a ninja is a profession that walks on the edge of life and death. Storm release attacks consume a great deal of chakra and cannot be used unless it is a critical moment. Once used, it must succeed. Chi. The storm release laser released from Sarui's palm instantly hit Sarutobi Akira. Sarui's eyes widened, and he felt joy in his heart. In addition, although storm release is a laser made of chakra, it is also non-physical, just like a real laser. Its lethality comes from the laser beam rapidly melting the target's body surface, causing the substance to vaporize. Therefore, the essence of storm release is the high temperature associated with a high-density, high-power laser beam. The main component of the human body is biological protein, which can generally be easily cut open. In fact, this was the case, and the laser directly cut Sarutobi Akira in half. However, with a pung sound of smoke, Sarutobi Akira disappeared into the air. Shadow clone. Sarui's pupils shrank, and he immediately realized that the opponent must have taken advantage of the wind release. Great breakthrough to block his vision and create a shadow clone to confuse him. In a flash of lightning, Sarui completed his thought process. Feeling a chill on the back of his head, he immediately turned his body and swept the storm release laser beam continuously emitted from his hand towards the approaching enemy. Ice release. But just as he turned behind him, a cold tone sounded from in front of him. This is an ice mirror. Inside, Sarui's own figure was reflected. He hadn't realized what was going on. The laser beam shining on it was reflected back because of the extremely smooth, mirror-like surface. Chi. The laser beam flashed past, and Sarui's body trembled slightly. Along with a burnt smell, his upper body slowly slid down diagonally, falling to the icy and snowy ground with a thud. Demonic mirror ice crystals. Sarutobi Akira removed the dazzling ice mirror and looked at the deceased lying on the ground. Ice release. Demonic mirror ice crystals can create one or more mirrors, reflecting what the caster wants from them. In other words, this technique can be used as a mirror alone, and mirrors can refract lasers. To some extent, it can also be said that ice release can restrain storm release to a certain extent and under certain circumstances, but doing so carries a great risk. If the ice mirror's reflectivity is not enough and the surface is not smooth enough, then the ice mirror will absorb the heat of the laser, instantly boiling, evaporating, and cracking. In the end, the chaotic, unorganized laser beams that penetrate will be unpredictably projected everywhere, leading to even more dangerous situations. A risky move, but he just didn't have this worry. As a stream of frost invaded the blade, it was covered with a layer of ice and snow. Sarutobi Akira was overflowing with killing intent. Captain Sarui. Several survivors cried out in grief, some with tears in their eyes, others with extreme anger. Staring at the enemies in front of him, Sarutobi Akira held the blade and charged directly into the crowd. With a roar and screams, in less than a few seconds, several dismembered frozen corpses appeared on the land of frost. Those who plunder will be plundered. Sarutobi Akira held the broadsword, stared at the ice corpses on the scene, and said in a low voice, Kumogakure is a country that is prone to plunder. Whether in wartime or peacetime, they're eyeing other countries. It can also be said that they have bandit habits. It's not just Konoha that has problems. Kumogakure village is also sick, or rather, the entire ninja world is very sick. But from now on, many things will slowly change and develop in a good direction. Hyuga surveyed the corpses scattered on the ground, all the chakra gradually disappearing from the corpses like extinguished lights. Only the man standing in the field was as bright as a torch. Inject the will of fire into Hokage. Progress. 2% Chapter 6. 8 Gates Formation versus Jinchuriki. Akira-sama, are you alright? The Yumino couple immediately stepped forward and asked. At this time, the way they looked at Sarutobi Akira already carried complete respect. Able to summon and freely command Lady Katsuyu. Can use Ice Release, Kekiai Genkai, and also killed the long-established, given a name by the third Reikage, Kumogakure Powerhouse, who can use Black Lightning and Storm Release. Black Lightning no Sarui. All of these performances made them admire Sarutobi Akira, and they no longer underestimated this young man in the slightest. Even though the other party was many years younger than them, Sarutobi Akira relied on his powerful strength to convince them completely. Akira-sama is definitely fully qualified for the position of 6th squad leader of the Umbu. Well, it's not a big problem. Sarui's remains have analytical value, and I will recover them. Sarutobi Akira nodded and casually instructed. Then we will collect the corpses of the other enemies. The Yumino couple consciously began the professional work of the Umbu, collecting corpses. And when Sarutobi Akira turned his gaze to Nono, her expression changed several times, as if she had something to say. Soon, Sarutobi Akira saw the change in the will of fire progress on the emotionless Byakugan girl. It's become 2%. Born into a branch family and bound by the caged bird seal, Hokage had no expectations for life. The dim and gloomy fate made her heart as dead as ashes. But, after all, people's hearts are made of flesh. Sarutobi Akira believed that he could slowly change her, change everything. One day, he would settle the problem of the branch and main families for them. After storing Sarui's body, Sarutobi Akira did not ask Nono to say anything. Instead, he directly ordered everyone that he was going to check on Hatake Tsukumo. Katsuyu, thank you for your hard work. Pung. Smoke rose, and the huge figure disappeared. Immediately afterward, a small slug fell from the sky and lay on Sarutobi Akira's shoulder. What's going on with Tsukumo-sama? Katsuyu asked. One is all, and all is one. No matter how Katsuyu splits, they all have the same consciousness. Therefore, at this moment, Katsuyu has withdrawn from the battle, but still intends to understand what happened to Hatake Tsukumo. Having watched Nawaki and Cat Dan die, one after another in the past. Now, no more tragedies can be allowed to happen. I'll tell you on the way. Sarutobi Akira strode forward, and his whole person cut through the air like an arrow leaving the string, stirring up wind and snow. Soon, Sarutobi Akira's back disappeared into the horizon about to dawn. Yamanaka K. Then please explain your side as well. A devilish smile bloomed. Yamanaka K watched Nono leisurely, waiting for her to explain the specific details of this mission. On the other side, the Yumino couple were still continuously collecting corpses. Nono adjusted her glasses. She glanced at Yamanaka K, and then at the emotionless Byakugan girl standing motionless in place. There was also Ringo Amuri, who was watching the fun from the puddle with a fierce look. She believed that if she didn't speak, Mr. Haichi's cousin would probably really dig out her brain using the Yamanaka clan's secret technique. Although her brain has been set with a restriction, like the safest safe, sealing all the information. In other words, Nono was willing to tell these things because she saw a possibility in Sarutobi Akira, a brand new possibility. No problem. So, Nono raised her head, and her expression changed from compassion to resilience. But you have to tell me first the whole story of Akira-sama coming to rescue Tsukumo-sama. That's how it is. On the Frost Road, Sarutobi Akira moved forward all the way. 58. Section 58 Dawn was quietly rising. Along the way, Sarutobi Ryo told Slug about the assassination of Hatake Tsukumo. But he didn't mention Senjin Iwaki from back then at all, because this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. Telling Slug rashly would only make it fall into a state of I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. Is this true? Slug was somewhat hesitant, not quite believing Sarutobi Ryo's statement. Sarutobi Ryo didn't respond, but continued on his way. Slug fell into deep thought. How could it not guess the truth of this matter? If someone in the upper echelons of Konoha could kill Nawaki and Kato Dan, then naturally, they could also assassinate Hatake Tsukumo. Hokage election. The battle for the fourth Hokage. Human society is just like this. As a sage of the Shikatsu forest, one of the three great sacred places, Slug has lived for over 1,000 years. It has seen too many tragedies and witnessed human history. It believed that some people could do these things. I will witness it to the end. Finally, it wiggled a bit and clung tightly to Sarutobi Ryo. No problem. Sarutobi Ryo nodded. This massive chakra disturbance could be clearly sensed even from a great distance. This is tailed beast power. Slug was the first to recognize the meaning of this light. The color was scarlet, giving people an ominous feeling. It's Gyuki. Subsequently, Slug accurately identified the source of this chakra. That's A's sworn brother, Killer Bee of the AB duo. Sarutobi Ryo nodded, immediately quickening his pace, his whole body as swift as lightning, using Hatake Tsukumo's taught signless body flicker technique. With the fusion and mastery of ice release, Sarutobi Ryo's chakra control had reached a higher level, directly evolving from the left-hand seal body flicker technique to the final step of the signless body flicker technique. Swish, swish, swish. Extremely fast after images flashed past, the wind whistling in his ears. Relying on the powerful dynamic vision brought by his right eye, Sarutobi Ryo could almost accurately avoid all obstacles on the road. As for those smaller obstacles, he directly crashed through them with steel release. Accompanied by a series of booming sounds, Sarutobi Ryo finally leaped into the foot of a mountain. Beneath the frost-covered mountains, at this moment, a fierce battle was unfolding. The white Fong blade light, represented by Hatake Tsukumo, was constantly blooming. Fighting him was the young and vigorous A. The future Raikage, surrounded by lightning, narrowly avoided Hatake Tsukumo's slashes, relying on his speed advantage. Although on the surface he seemed to have the upper hand, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Hatake Tsukumo, who seemed passive, was the one with the advantage. Sarutobi Ryo turned his gaze and looked to the other side. A ninja lying on the ground, covered in scarlet chakra, was roaring. Clearly, this ninja was Killer Bee in his half-tailed beast transformation state. It could be seen that Killer Bee was still unable to fully control Gyuki's power. After all, the title of Perfect Jinchuriki would only become a reality many years later. People all need time to grow. Killer Bee was no exception, and Might Dai, who was fighting Killer Bee, had flames surging all over his body. His skin turned red, his veins bulging, and his eyes had turned white. In fact, this was the appearance after opening the 8 inner gates. And from the fact that all the surrounding frost had been blown away, and even cracks had appeared on the ground, Might Dai had at least entered the state of 8 inner gates, 6th gate, view gate. Chapter 7. Repelling the enemy. Roar. Killer Bee, having completed his half-tailed beast transformation, suddenly pounced on Might Dai. At this time, the number of tails behind him was 4. In terms of quality alone, he could even exchange blows with the Sannin. If it were normal Jonin facing Killer Bee's pounce, they would probably be killed directly in one encounter. Drink. Might Dai reacted the instant the opponent pounced over. Morning Peacock. Accompanied by countless afterimages of fists being swung, the intense friction of the air generated fireballs that looked like peacock tail feathers. These fireballs, accompanied by the rumbling sound like thousands of shells being fired, crashed head-on into Killer Bee. Truly amazing. The knowledgeable Slug couldn't help but exclaim. Seeing the 8 inner gates technique was a very rare occurrence. This technique could greatly enhance a ninja's qualities, raising their strength to an incredible level. Sarutobi Ryo stopped at this moment, his eyes fixed on Might Dai without blinking. Only because he possessed excellent dynamic vision could he understand the reason for Slug's exclamation. First of all, a standard must be explained. In the Naruto world, The strength of ninjas gradually increases with the promotion of titles, which is a common principle. Generally speaking, a Jonin's qualities attack speed, movement speed, etc. are comprehensively superior to a Chunin. In the Naruto official novels, the supersonic attack methods of Jonin have been mentioned many times. A Jonin possesses two attributes. Generally speaking, some Jonin can enchant kunai, giving the kunai wind release and lightning release characteristics. When they're honed strong enough, they can launch wind release supersonic kunai or lightning release supersonic kunai. Of course, this is something that only a portion of Jonin with these two attributes and talents can do. But this also provides a clear specification for the qualities of Jonin. A true Jonin can, to a certain extent, use supersonic attacks or avoid enemy supersonic attacks. If the Naruto world had real firearms, there would be the routine operation of Jonin ninjas being able to dodge bullets with the naked eye. In the original work, Kakashi relied on his 3-tomo Sharingan to see the trajectory of lightning strikes and cut them off, thus evolving the A-rank Chidori into the S-rank Raikiri. And at this moment, the 8 inner gates used by Might Dai is pure taijutsu. He created a terrifying flame-burning phenomenon just by swinging his fists in the air. In physics, to do this means that Might Dai's punching speed must reach at least 5 times the speed of sound. Only with such a terrifying punching speed can he unleash the taijutsu called Morning Peacock. Each fireball is no less than the flame launched by a main battle tank in his previous life. Boom, boom, boom. Countless fireballs instantly submerged Killer Bee. Like hitting a sandbag, Killer Bee in his half-tailed beast transformation was actually knocked away. Not only that, but the chakra covering his body also became much thinner. This was a phenomenon caused by the tailed beast chakra being consumed to the point where it could not be replenished. After all, a punching speed of 5 times the speed of sound is too exaggerated and terrifying. The loud noise here, like the roar of countless tank main guns, naturally made A and Hatake Tsukumo temporarily stop fighting. Both of them looked at Might Dai, whose body was surging with flames, with astonished expressions, and could not imagine that the other party's strength was so powerful. The power caused by Might Dai's punches alone completely subverted A's imagination. Having never seen the 8 inner gates, it was certainly not afraid in his heart, because he had enough courage and to face difficulties head-on. However, compared to the courage he possessed, he was more worried that his brother would encounter misfortune. This thick-browed guy was a very powerful master. There was also Konoha White Fang next to him, a judge that the two brothers would not be a match for this Konoha duo. Without the slightest hesitation, A, who valued his brother's life, directly ran over, grabbed his sworn brother, and ran away without looking back. Konoha guys, we Hidden Cloud will never let you go. Before leaving, they did not forget to make harsh remarks. The shame of having secret information snatched away in person will be repaid 100-fold one day. The sound quickly faded away, enough to show A's amazing speed. Even Hatake Tsukumo could not catch up with him. If there was no flying thunder god technique, then A would be the undisputed fastest person in the ninja world. His speed is too fast. Hatake Tsukumo held a scroll in one hand and a short knife in the other, sighing in the direction where A disappeared. I've seen the third Raikage's lightning release chakra mode, but it doesn't seem to have this kind of speed. Even the same technique, placed in different people's hands, will derive different directions. The third Raikage focused on offense and defense, while his son focused on strengthening his reflexes and speed. Sarutobi Ryo walked over and explained. The third Raikage could fight Gyuki to a draw, but A could not. 59. Section 59. This isn't just a matter of age and strength, but also a matter of the direction of chosen techniques. But even so, in terms of speed, A is quite astonishing. But considering that A is still young, he will become stronger and stronger in the future. So for now, we can only look at the present. And it's the same with Killer Bee. When he can fully master the power of the 8 tails, his strength will be vastly different. Ugh. Just then, Might Dai's groan came. However, Might Dai's performance still exceeded his expectations. The eternal genin that people chatted about in the neighborhood and among his companions actually possess such a powerful secret technique? Indeed, there are hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the common people. However, Kakashi Tsukumo didn't know the side effects of the Eight Gates formation. As soon as he touched Might Dai screamed. Ugh, it seems the backlash from the secret technique is very serious. Kakashi Tsukumo thought Might Dai was seriously injured and wanted to continue checking Might Dai's condition. Tsukumo-sensei, don't move him. After the Eight Gates formation is released, the caster's sense of pain will be amplified countless times. Moving him even slightly is equivalent to slow slicing. Sarutobi Ryo kindly explained. Kakashi Tsukumo, so this is the legendary Eight Gates formation. Kakashi Tsukumo looked at the constantly twitching Might Dai and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. By the time Nanoyu and the others caught up, the bright morning sun slowly rose from the horizon. Golden rays of light shone brightly, the air was cleansed, and a brand new day had arrived. Nanoyu squatted down and treated Might Dai, but her eyes frequently looked towards Sarutobi Ryo, the Yumino couple, and Yamanaka Akira. Upon hearing about Might Dai assisting Kakashi Tsukumo and single-handedly repelling the Eight Tails Jinchuriki, exclaimed in disbelief. So many surprising things happened during an ANBU mission, but for Sarutobi Ryo, saving Kakashi Tsukumo was the most crucial thing. Looking at Kakashi Tsukumo, who was constantly scratching his head and expressing his apologies to Might Dai, Sarutobi Ryo's mouth slightly curved up, and then he couldn't help but look at the rising sun. Senior Nawaki, just as you said, even if the road ahead is full of wind and frost, we will eventually usher in a day of bright sunshine. Chapter 8. The changed future. Several days later, the team, which had been stopping and going because of treating Might Dai, finally returned to Konoha. Inside the Hokage building, several Konoha high-ranking officials gathered. When they saw Kakashi Tsukumo return, Danzo, Yuditane Koharu, and Mikoto Hamura, the three masterminds, immediately widened their eyes. Tsukumo, you're back. Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled, not noticing the surprise hidden in the eyes of his three colleagues. Konoha White Fang, this man has returned. Danzo and the others couldn't help but shift their gazes to Yakushi Nanoyu. What's going on? Hokage-sama, we successfully retrieved the intelligence personnel and recovered the Cloud Village's confidential intelligence. Kakashi Tsukumo handed over the scroll. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at it and handed it to his subordinate. Next, the scroll will be deciphered and analyzed by the Cipher Team and Barrier Team, and ultimately obtain all the information inside. And when Danzo and the others saw Sarutobi Ryo and the Yumino couple also coming in, a bad feeling arose in their hearts. This time, thanks to Ryo-sama and their help. Kakashi Tsukumo said happily. From a few words, Danzo and the others understood the whole story. This was actually led by Sarutobi Hiruzen's son, Sarutobi Ryo. Minato Namikaze, who was standing aside, also had a different look in his eyes. He concealed his gaze very well and was not noticed by anyone. Minato Namikaze, who had been to Mount Mayaboku and seen the Great Toad Sage's prophecy, already knew that Kakashi Tsukumo would fail in this mission. Faced with completing the mission and saving his companions, Kakashi Tsukumo chose the latter. This led to the failure to obtain the confidential information. The result of being able to know the Cloud Village's subsequent 10-year or even longer-term development plan was thus turned into a bubble. To some extent, this caused a huge loss to the Land of Fire. Kakashi Tsukumo thus bore the infamy, and even the companions who were rescued accused him. In the end, Kakashi Tsukumo committed suicide at home on a night of thunder and rain. Seeing the result, Kakashi's personality changed drastically from then on. It should have been like this. If it was the original future, the future has been changed again. Minato Namikaze silently looked at Sarutobi Ryo. The correction of history, this is not the first time. In fact, before, history had changed, but it was relatively subtle and the impact was not so drastic. It was not until history continued to change and the future began to become a chaotic mess. That the great Toad Sage summoned himself and sent himself to Mount Mayaboku. Ryo-sama, looking at Sarutobi Ryo explaining the mission situation, Minato Namikaze's eyes flickered. Could it be that you are the culprit who caused the destruction of the old world and led the ninja world to another future? That's how it is. Sarutobi Ryo finished explaining and explained the progress of the mission. Using the excuse of going to support because I was worried about Miss Nanoyu's safety, Sarutobi Ryo fabricated the reason for his departure. And Danzo and the others all knew that the reason didn't matter. Just make one up. The focus is on the actual thoughts. The three thought for a while and imperceptibly shifted their gazes away from Sarutobi Ryo and finally placed them on Sarutobi Hiruzen. Danzo, this is Hiruzen's instruction. You detain That's right, Mikoto Hamura. Recently, Sarutobi Ryo has become more and more daring, and it is estimated that he cannot be separated from Hiruzen. A wonderful misunderstanding thus arose. Sarutobi Ryo, who was still a young man, did not arouse the strong suspicion of the three. They only regarded Sarutobi Ryo as an arm pushed out by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Afterwards, the three looked at each other and saw the meaning in each other's eyes. Sarutobi Hiruzen, it seems that he is determined to make Kakashi Tsukumo the fourth Hokage. Because when they were chatting before, Sarutobi Hiruzen said that the most suitable person to be the fourth Hokage at present is Konoha White Fang. And what Danzo and the others didn't know was the reason why Sarutobi Hiruzen mentioned it unintentionally that day was only because he went to Sarutobi Ryo's place the night before and felt it after chatting with Sarutobi Ryo. A series of accidental events combined together, eventually forming a huge misunderstanding. Sarutobi Ryo looked around at the high-ranking officials with a blank expression, guessing their thoughts. Just then, Yuditane Koharu suddenly spoke. Sarutobi Ryo, I have a question for you. Koharu-sama, please speak. Sarutobi Ryo nodded, his tone neither humble nor arrogant. Who do you think is the most suitable candidate to be the next Hokage? As Yuditane Koharu raised this question, the Hokage's office instantly became silent. Even Yamanaka Akira, who always liked to cause trouble, held his breath. Everyone's eyes were focused on Sarutobi Ryo's face. At this time, at this moment, asking such a question, I think it's Konoha White Fan Kakashi Tsukumo. As Sarutobi Ryo's words fell, the atmosphere suddenly became tense, and Kakashi Tsukumo, who should have been stunned on the spot, slowly disappeared from his face at this time and replaced it with a serious look. Why Kakashi Tsukumo? Yuditane Koharu deliberately made her tone softer, but in fact it contained more murderous intent. Of course, on the surface, he was asking Sarutobi Ryo, but in fact he was asking Sarutobi Hiruzen's true thoughts. Because Yuditane Koharu believed that Sarutobi Hiruzen had already made arrangements and let his son come out to endorse him. Asking Sarutobi Ryo is equivalent to asking him, the third Hokage. Tsukumo-sensei's skills surpass the Sannin, and the public's voice is extremely high, and the others who have the qualifications of Hokage are too young. Minato Namikaze. Sarutobi Ryo flatly denied the others. Not only Minato Namikaze, but also himself. What is the real will of fire? It is not to seek welfare for oneself and disregard others, but to first consider the interests of Konoha or the public. Assuming there is an opportunity in front of Sarutobi Ryo now, someone says, Sarutobi Ryo can become Hokage now. Sarutobi Ryo would never agree. People should be self-aware. The position of Hokage, I will get it, but not now. Section 60, when I become stronger, strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the powerhouses, even surpass them. The title of Hokage will naturally fall into my hands through true ability. Relying on artificial hype, boasting, and flattery will only lead to a true naked swim, and that is the real tragedy. So I believe if we were to choose the fourth Hokage, the most suitable person is Master Tsukumo. Sarutobi Ryo finished speaking and then fell silent. Danzo and the others had dark and uncertain expressions. They had to admit that the plan to harm Hotake Sakomo had failed this time. But things won't end so simply. Koho, Hiruzen is still young and strong. It's too early to talk about the next Hokage election. Danzo came out to smooth things over. It was also to extinguish the possibility of Hotake Sakomo taking office as Hokage in the near future. In an era of peace, the focus is on development, waiting to digest the spoils obtained in the Second Shinobi World War. The Third Shinobi World War will be launched not far from now. When that time comes, everything will be revealed. Yes, that's right. Yudatane Koharu nodded, agreeing with Danzo's statement. I also agree with what Danzo said. Mikoto Hamura adjusted his glasses. Seeing the behavior of the three old foxes, Sarutobi Ryo knew that things would not end so simply. However, since the first step has already been taken, the subsequent steps are only natural. To completely free Hotake Sakomo from the threat, the ultimate goal is naturally to make him the fourth Hokage. Whether from the perspective of refusing to be persecuted or from the perspective of the most suitable situation, just as Sarutobi Ryo was thinking this. Words flickered in front of his right retina. The long unseen system prompt went online. Will a fire system. Current stage main quest goal before the Third Shinobi World War arrives. Pass the Umbu exam and ultimately become the leader of Umbu Squad 6. Completion progress 80%. 100% progress will unlock the reward. Real power. Before Sarutobi Ryo could react. Immediately afterwards, a waterfall of information covered the above prompt. Then, several lines of brand new prompt messages went online. Next stage main quest story triggered. Next stage main story quest. The road to Hokage. Hotake Sakomo survives and comprehends the true meaning of the will of fire. Next stage main quest goal. Help to the end. Experience the Third Shinobi World War, survive it, become the Jonin Squad leader, and ultimately help Hotake Sakomo take office as the fourth Hokage. Next stage main quest reward. Real strength. The Hokage World Line, helping Hotake Sakomo become the fourth Hokage. Sarutobi Ryo glanced at the system prompt and nodded secretly in his heart. If Hotake Sakomo becomes the Hokage, encountering Obito during the nine-tailed demon fox attack will be more than just injuring Obito, right? No, since I have already changed Hotake Sakomo's fate. Kakashi's fate will also become completely different. Consequently, Obito's fate will also be affected. Some things can no longer be viewed with past perceptions. And the current main quest progress has reached 80%, just one step away from being promoted from Umbu Squad Leader to Umbu Squad 6 leader. Defeating Lightning Release with Ice Release, killing the third Raikage bequeathed Black Lightning Sarui, once again proved his strength. Just symbolically complete a stage of the mission, wait for a period of time, and the promotion can be achieved naturally. After all, if he were to be promoted again so quickly after just becoming an Umbu Squad leader, it would definitely arouse suspicion and dissatisfaction among the people. Such a formal address and declaration can be regarded as abandoning his personal position and making a normal request as a squad leader. No problem. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was overjoyed, was beaming with happiness. Seeing his eldest son creating brilliance again, he was of course very happy. Even Sarui died at the hands of his eldest son. The future is promising. Then, we will take our leave first. Sarutobi Ryo turned around and left the Hokage's office with Yamanaka and the others. After leaving the Hokage building and coming to the shade of the trees outside, Hotake Sakomo breathed a sigh of relief. These days, on the way, Sarutobi Ryo had already explained the stakes to him. Hotake Sakomo had deeply understood that some things cannot be avoided by hiding. Only by facing them directly can he protect himself and his relatives and friends. Young Master Ryo, I will secretly go to find the third Hokage in private. Hotake Sakomo prepared to adopt Sarutobi Ryo's suggestion and secretly make a request to join the Hokage's direct Umbu squad. Once he becomes a direct Umbu under the third Hokage, then even Danzo would not dare to casually move him, unless, like in the original story, Danzo secretly harmed Uchiha Shursui, finding a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to persecute him. But Hatake Tsukumo is not the young and vigorous Uchiha Shursui. Hatake Tsukumo, whose basic skills and experience are terrifyingly strong, can easily counterkill many minions and even threaten Danzo. No, Master Tsukumo, it's not just that. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head. You should run for the 4th Hokage. The implication is that only by becoming the Hokage can he truly avoid being persecuted and escape the conspiracies of the higher-ups. Yes, I understand. Hatake Tsukumo nodded with a heavy face. The situation has come to this, and he really has no other choice, whether for Kakashi, or for not disappointing his disciples' good intentions, or even for changing the current situation of the village and dispelling the darkness. Indeed, he should work hard toward the position of Hokage. From today onwards, I should also work hard. Hatake Tsukumo scratched his head. When a man whose dream is to be free and unfettered, lie flat, becomes serious and advances towards the position of Hokage, how powerful will he be? Sarutobi Ryo is very much looking forward to it. After Hatake Tsukumo said goodbye and agreed to treat him to dinner, Sarutobi Ryo watched his figure disappear into the vast crowd. Young master, I think that Namikaze Minato seems to have some ideas. Yamanaka hinted. Hatake Tsukumo was not successfully harmed, and he also seemed very unhappy. Namikaze Minato naturally has his concerns. After speaking, Sarutobi Ryo stepped away from here. Next, he had to visit Might Do Wei and find a way to analyze Sarui's remains to see if he could crack the mystery of Storm Release Kekiai Genkai. What is it? Yamanaka immediately followed, looking puzzled. This matter has to start with Uzumaki Kushina. All Jinchuriki, or rather, the tailed beasts possessed by the ninja villages, are existences that have inextricable connections with the Kage. For example, Killer Bee, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki, is A's sworn brother. For example, in the original story, Yagura sealed the 3 tails into his body and personally became the Jinchuriki. Also, for example, the 1-tailed Jinchuriki was imprisoned and watched by the masses. Later, it was replaced by Gaara, the son of the 4th Kazekage, Raza, etc., etc., etc. Many cases through the narration of the Naruto characters have proved that Jinchuriki/tailed beast must have some kind of deep binding with the Kage of a village. If Hatake Tsukumo becomes the 4th Hokage, the difficulty for Namikaze Minato, who is not related to Hatake Tsukumo, to marry Uzumaki Kushina will increase sharply. Political matters cannot be muddled through with the saying mutual affection. And these secrets, including Kushina's identity as a Jinchuriki, are not known to Yamanaka. Even Sarutobi Ryo should not know that Kushina is the 9 Tails Jinchuriki. It's just that Sarutobi Ryo has the memories of a transmigrator, so he can completely analyze this and will not be limited by this identity. Speaking of which, the problem between Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina is not without a solution. Of course, saying these things is too far away. Only when Hatake Tsukumo becomes the 4th Hokage will there be value in discussing the destination of Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato's love. Otherwise, it is just empty talk. The edge of Konoha, small bridge, flowing water. The windmill turns, a scene of a paradise. Namikaze Minato came here, feeling a little heavy. Minato, Uzumaki Kushina, who was busy in the yard, immediately waved happily when she saw her lover arriving. She seemed to have inexhaustible energy. Her beautiful and pure face and beautiful red hair deeply attracted Namikaze Minato. Kushina, Namikaze Minato, who came here from the Hokage building, showed a smile. Minato, what's wrong with you? Seeing that her lover's smile was a little stiff, Uzumaki Kushina slowly changed her tone and asked gently. 61. Section 61, how should I put it? Minato Namikaze's eyes flickered, unsure how to begin. If he hadn't seen the original future foretold by the great Toad Sage, he wouldn't be so worried. But after experiencing the memory landscape that felt like a real life, it was as if he had started a new game plus. In that future, he observed, everything was so real, including falling in love with Kushina, becoming the fourth Hokage, Kushina's pregnancy, and giving birth to Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, his own child. It was as if he truly existed. Minato. Just as Minato Namikaze was lost in his memories, a noble and composed female voice sounded. Immediately afterward, a woman with a noble bearing and indescribable beauty emerged from the house. She had the same fiery red hair as Kushina, but it was styled into two buns at the back of her head. Dressed in a simple white robe, she exuded an ethereal aura, like a goddess from the heavens. The wife of the first Hokage, Uzumaki Mito, who should have died. She had survived after the tailed beast was extracted from her. Why? Chapter 10. The exquisite Uzumaki Mito. Uzumaki Mito. Lady Mito, I have always had a question in my heart. Please allow me to boldly ask you. How did you survive after the tailed beast was extracted from you back then? Minato Namikaze took a deep breath and solemnly inquired. According to the original future observed by the great Toad Sage, Uzumaki Mito should have died after the Nine Tails was extracted from her. The Nine Tails was incorporated into a new Jinchuriki, Kushina's body, which made Kushina the second Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Uzumaki Mito didn't beat around the bush because it really wasn't a big deal. Back then, Nawaki didn't want me to die, so he started trying to find a way. Nawaki was the most heartbroken person when he learned that his grandmother was going to have the Nine Tails extracted. And when she mentioned her deceased grandson, a trace of sadness flashed in Uzumaki Mito's eyes. A child, what kind of method could he come up with? At the time, I just treated it as a joke. Until later, Nawaki said that while releasing the Nine Tails, she should try to use the strength of 100 seal. The Nine Tails was actively incorporated into the body using the Uzumaki clan's secret technique, adamantine sealing chains. When unsealing, it was roughly the reverse operation, releasing the Nine Tails. And according to the common knowledge of the ninja world, a Jinchuriki will definitely die when the tailed beast is extracted. This is an iron rule, but at that time, I, who had used the strength of 100 technique, survived. The diamond-shaped mark on Uzumaki Mito's forehead was clearly visible. Perhaps in some timelines, Uzumaki Mito would not know the strength of 100 technique. But in the Naruto world, where Sarutobi Ryo was located, Uzumaki Mito did know it. I see. Minato Namikaze nodded slightly, understanding in his heart. The strength of 100 technique is the ultimate forbidden technique after In Seal and Creation Rebirth. 2 S-rank ninjutsu are cultivated to the extreme. At the beginning, the In Seal could only wrap around the face and head. As the cultivation progress increased, it could slowly extend to the neck, upper body, arms, and finally the lower limbs and feet. The In Seal that can cover the whole body is called the strength of 100 technique. All the parts that are covered can enjoy the nourishment of a huge amount of chakra, thus continuously regenerating. Uzumaki Mito released the Nine Tails, lost her vitality, but gained vitality again because of the strength of 100 technique. 1 + 1 - No, there is probably also the credit of the Uzumaki clan's bloodline in this. When Kushina was born, she was detected to have a unique chakra, so she was selected to become the next Jinchuriki. And Uzumaki Mito was the daughter of Uzumaki Ashina, the head of the Uzumaki clan, a true Uzumaki princess. In terms of bloodline, it is more pure, and the vitality is also stronger. The two combined finally allowed her to survive successfully, and thus maintained a youthful appearance, looking like a young woman. Minato Namikaze, who opened the new game plus memory, analyzed this in his heart. So the question comes, how did the already dead senior Nawaki come up with this plan? Or rather, he shouldn't have been able to think of it. A face emerged from Minato Namikaze's mind. Young Master Ryo, did you do it? Uzumaki Mito, Minato. Yes. Minato Namikaze, who was called by name, immediately concentrated. You must become Hokage. Uzumaki Mito stared at the blonde boy in front of her. He and Kushina stood together, a perfect match, a golden couple. Even for Kushina's sake, Minato Namikaze must become Hokage. Because Jinchuriki are existences that need to be loved. Only in this way can they truly suppress the Nine Tails. Just like the love between herself and Hashirama back then. Lady Mito, actually I don't understand. Minato Namikaze raised his head and looked at this exquisite woman. He agreed to Uzumaki Mito's entrustment, but there was still one thing he didn't understand. Why would you support me instead of young Master Ryo? Senjin Iwaki, Minato Namikaze, Sarutobi Ryo, the trio back then. All three were dragons among men, rare geniuses. After Nawaki's death, Uzumaki Mito should have supported Sarutobi Ryo. But at that time, Uzumaki Mito immediately began to guide Minato Namikaze. This choice made Minato Namikaze a little confused. After all, at that time, he had not yet rescued the captured Kushina, so naturally there was no talk of being in love. Uzumaki Mito was silent. Kushina, who was observing the situation, just as she thought that Lady Mito might reprimand Minato, and was preparing to say a few words for Minato. Lady Mito's reaction, however, exceeded her expectations. After Nawaki died, I have always regarded you as another grandson of mine. Uzumaki Mito's tone was quite old-fashioned. Coupled with her bright and youthful appearance, it was indeed a little incongruous. Minato Namikaze listened quietly, without saying a word. And more importantly, Sarutobi Ryo, that child, failed to enter my eyes. Uzumaki Mito's words were ambiguous, but Minato Namikaze suddenly understood. If he didn't have the memory of the second playthrough, he wouldn't have been able to read the hidden meaning in this sentence. Lady Mito possesses a special ability that other members of the Uzumaki clan do not have, said to be an ability passed down from generation to generation by the heads of the Uzumaki clan. Its name is Malice Perception. That's right, it is Malice Perception, not the ability of a perfect Jinchuriki. Because Minato Namikaze clearly knew, Konoha's attitude towards the Nine Tails is to seal it. Whether it was Lady Mito or Kushina, they never used the power of the Nine Tails in their lives. Since they never used the power of the Nine Tails, naturally, there was no talk of a perfect Jinchuriki. So, this is Lady Mito's unique Malice Perception ability. Although the perfect Nine Tails Jinchuriki also possesses this ability. In other words, Lady Mito sensed that young Master Ryo had malice, even evil in his heart. Minato Namikaze's thoughts flowed, and all the memories about Sarutobi Ryo flashed through his mind. From his gloomy and indifferent childhood, to his unsmiling demeanor during his ninja school days, to his aloofness after becoming a ninja, and to his current attitude of gradually openly testing and even resisting the higher-ups. Could it be? Minato Namikaze also thought of the previous report in the Hokage building. Young Master Ryo summoned Katsuyu. Young Master Ryo. Did he also receive an indication from the sage? Minato Namikaze thought that Sarutobi Ryo had also received the future foretold by the sage of the Sacred Land. However, this matter still needs to be confirmed. Lady Mito, I have another question. May I ask, does Katsuyu Sage have the ability to predict the future? The Great Toad Sage has the ability to predict the future because of his excessively large chakra. Minato Namikaze was wondering if Katsuyu Sage also had the same ability. Possibly. Uzumaki Mito's answer made Minato Namikaze silent. Among the ninjas who have been to Shikatsu Forest and seen the main body of Katsuyu Sage, only Hashirama survived. So it's just a possibility. After all, the length of Katsuyu Sage's main body is unfathomable. The chakra gathered by such a huge body may even exceed that of the Great Toad Sage. 62. Section 62, however, possessing an immense amount of chakra doesn't necessarily grant the ability to foresee the future. Therefore, I can only speak of this matter with a tone of speculation. Why are you asking about this? Mito Uzumaki asked, puzzled. Don't you already have the inheritance of Mount Maiboku? Well, it's like this. Minato Namikaze steadied his mind and recounted the event of Sarutobi Ryo summoning a slug. This time, it was Mito Uzumaki's turn to fall silent. After a moment, Mito Uzumaki said, "Don't worry about it. Let it be." After all, even Hashirama back then couldn't command the main body of the Slug Sage. The existence of the Slug Sage's main body is completely different from its divided forms. Minato Namikaze felt very relieved. "Lady Mito, please rest assured, I will strive to become the fourth Hokage." Chapter 11. Sarutobi Ryo, Mito Uzumaki, one day, I will. Several days passed in a flash. Might Guy reached the time of his discharge from the hospital. Early that morning, Sarutobi Ryo brought fruit to visit him in person. At the bustling entrance of the hospital, Might Guy stood there full of energy, clearly having fully recovered his health. Unlike in the original story, where Guy would only become exhausted after opening the 6 gates. Might Guy's basic qualities were not as good as the adult Guy in the original story, so opening the 6 gates caused him to lie in bed for a week. However, to protect his comrades, Might Guy disregarded the side effects and resolutely took action. He single-handedly created the feat of repelling the 8 Tails Jinchuriki. Although Hiruzen Sarutobi was present at the time, causing it to have to stop, this was still a very amazing achievement. At this time, Guy stood beside Might Guy, his eyes full of admiration for his father. Previously, Guy always thought that his father, as a perennial genin, was constantly encouraging himself with an Q mentality, and his life was very tragic. But after this mission, his attitude towards his father had completely changed. Without a doubt, Might Guy had rendered great service to the village. The successful acquisition of the secret scroll allowed Konoha to obtain a great deal of important information. For example, Kumovikure planned to research a weapon called the Space-Time Chakra Cannon within the next 20 years. This weapon could fire at sublight speed, with the ultimate goal of blasting the moon hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. The other content recorded was also quite shocking. From this, one could see Kumovikure's arms race and warmongering. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Hiruzen Sarutobi proposed a reform of the Chunin exams. Even if one doesn't know ninjutsu, they are qualified to become a Chunin. Might Guy's performance, at the right time, shut everyone's mouths. This perennial genin, who was ridiculed by others, became famous overnight, becoming a marvel in people's mouths. Logically, Might Guy was promoted to Chunin by the higher-ups. This was a huge reform in Konoha's history, employing people according to their actual talents, rather than sticking to illusory promotion standards. Might Guy becoming a Chunin will give more people hope of becoming a ninja or being promoted to Chunin. Among them, it will naturally bless his son, Guy. According to this development, Guy will have fewer obstacles to becoming a Chunin in the future. Mr. Guy, congratulations on your discharge from the hospital. Sarutobi Ryo handed the fruit to Guy. Might Guy looked grateful. Young Master Ryo, I was able to get promoted thanks to you helping me arrange the last mission. That mission added a brilliant achievement to Might Guy's resume. The amount of mission money allocated was enough for him to improve his life for a long time. This is the mission reward. Sarutobi Ryo handed over an envelope along the way. The weight in his hand surprised Might Guy a little. He quickly checked it and found that the amount of money was a bit too much. Obviously, there was an extra share of support from Sarutobi Ryo. Young Master Ryo, I can't accept so much reward. Might Guy waved his hand sincerely, ready to refuse immediately. Sarutobi Ryo stopped him. Guy practices taijutsu every day, and a child's body needs to supplement a lot of nutrition and training equipment, doesn't it? Might Guy thought for a while, knowing that this was young Master Ryo's kindness, so he no longer declined. In the future, if there are other difficult tasks, I will still need Mr. Guy's strong assistance. Sarutobi Ryo smiled slightly, explaining another meaning. A strong person who can use the 8 gates release formation is worth relying on no matter what. The mission to save Tsukumo Hatake was proof of this. No problem. Might Guy, who had the will of fire in his heart, agreed readily. After chatting for a while, the father and son bid farewell to Sarutobi Ryo. Watching their departing backs, Sarutobi Ryo felt quite gratified. Konoha is formed by such individuals who sincerely dedicate themselves to the village. The more such existences there are, the better. Compared to those who are selfish and opportunistic, Might Guy and others are existences that are worth admiring and relying on. Those who are selfish and opportunistic, Sarutobi Ryo slowly turned around and looked towards the end of the corridor. Several stern figures were protecting someone as they slowly walked over. If the feeling that those few umbu gave people was no entry for strangers, then the existence being protected in the middle was ethereal and detached from the world. The exquisite and noble face, coupled with the bright red hair and the bun hairstyle, added an indescribable charm to her. The white robe fluttered, and even simple clothes gave off a solemn feeling like a goddess. Sarutobi Ryo stared at her with unwavering eyes. What could be confirmed was that Sarutobi Ryo had never seen a noble existence that could compare to her in this life. The innate noble temperament on the other party was completely different from the willful nature of Princess Tsunade. But it was a true ethereal temperament. This also caused Sarutobi Ryo's originally calm state of mind to slightly change. Everyone has a love for beauty. In addition, Sarutobi Ryo also admitted that there was a dark side to his heart. It was just that the dark side was usually hidden very well and would not be discovered by most people. The previous 2 times the dark side was stimulated were the experiences of injecting the will of fire into Yamanaka Satoshi and Ringo Urue. Now, facing this woman who was unbelievably beautiful, the darkness in Sarutobi Ryo's heart surged up again. Lady Mito, the passing medical ninjas and nurses greeted this beautiful woman one after another. They all showed respect or longing in their eyes. The wife of the first Hokage, the grandmother of Tsunade and Nawaki Senju, Mito Uzumaki. Sarutobi Ryo silently watched her walk all the way. When she passed by him, she brought a fluttering fragrance. Sarutobi Ryo could confirm that it was not the scent of bath soap, nor the scent of spices, but the aura that this woman naturally possessed. Without a doubt, this was an extremely beautiful woman. The sweet body fragrance she exuded also indicated the unique charm she possessed. Lady Mito, Sarutobi Ryo said calmly. Mito Uzumaki turned her head, but did not stop walking. A trace of imperceptible disgust flashed in her eyes. This scene, unless one activated the Byakugan or Sharingan for precise capture, it would be impossible to detect the subtle changes in the human pupil. Unfortunately, Sarutobi Ryo was using his right eye at this moment to zoom in and magnify Mito Uzumaki's face. Her performance was also completely captured in his eyes. Mito Uzumaki possessed the ability to sense malice. This was the reason why she recognized Minato Namikaze back then. Mito Uzumaki nodded slightly, then turned her head and walked away. Sarutobi Ryo knew that the other party could sense the evil parts in his heart. He did not shy away from this at all. But what Mito Uzumaki didn't know was that her grandson, Nawaki Senju, also knew this. The difference between the two was that Mito Uzumaki judged people's hearts, not their actions. Nawaki Senju judged people's actions, not their hearts. Having played together since childhood, how could Nawaki Senju not know the evil in his heart? But he still chose to be tolerant and decided to judge others by their actual actions, instead of simply deciding what kind of person someone was based on a certain part of their thoughts. In the end, Nawaki Senju entrusted the will of fire to him. Passing on the torch, Sarutobi Ryo also decided that he would change the world of Konoha and the ninja world. 63. Section 63. Even if there are dark parts in my heart, I can still walk the path of light and lead the village to the right path. Mikoto Uzumaki. Sarutobi Ryo stared at the woman's departing back and murmured, "One day, I will turn her into a weapon of the will of fire." Taking a deep look at her, Sarutobi Ryo turned and left. Mikoto Uzumaki stopped and looked back. "Mikoto-sama, what's wrong?" Several Umbu members responsible for guarding asked. Nothing. Mikoto Uzumaki watched Sarutobi Ryo's figure stride away. The evil that was carefully hidden at the beginning is now finally beginning to slowly break ground, gradually letting go of its disguise. As expected, my choice of Minato Namikaze as the successor to the Will of Fire was the right decision. Nawaki, that child, is just too soft-hearted and makes friends carelessly. Just like Hashirama back then. Chapter 12. Inject the Will of Fire into Nono. Leaving Konoha Hospital, Sarutobi Ryo was planning to go to Rin Nohara's house to inform her about assisting in the research of the corpse of the storm-released ninja, Sarui. On the way, he was stopped by a familiar figure, Ryo Shasama. In the bright morning sun, everything seemed to be thriving. Sarutobi Ryo turned around and saw a golden-haired girl dressed in a nun's habit. At first, Sarutobi Ryo didn't react slightly, but then he guessed the other party's intention. No, are you leaving Konoha? However, the development of the matter was not like that. Ryo Shasama, let's have a meal together. Yakushi Nono had a smile on her face, seeming very happy. This moment, her performance is more in line with her identity as a girl, rather than the thousand-faced spy who needs to disguise. I've decided to apply for retirement. Oh, Sarutobi Ryo was not surprised at all. After all, this is how it developed in the original work. Even Kakashi Tsukumo, such a loyal minister, is going to be killed by the high-level officials of Konoha, and it is a matter of course to feel unhappy about this and want to stay away. After retirement, I plan to open an orphanage in Konoha. In short, Yakushi Nono looked away slightly and became a little restrained. At first, I did lose hope in the village and felt that the future would not become better. But seeing Ryo Shasama, you are not afraid of authority and insist on the true will of fire, I feel that I have been encouraged. That heart, which was becoming more and more withered because of seeing too much darkness, began to revive little by little. You misunderstood. I'm just inheriting the will of Senior Nawaki. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head, his tone still calm. Does he have the true will of fire? Of course, but that is the passing of the torch from Senior Nawaki. At first, his purpose was just to get through this life. A single spark can start a prairie fire. Yakushi Nono showed a sweet smile. Ryo Shasama, isn't it? Sarutobi Ryo stared at the girl with such a smile in front of him, just about to say something. A new prompt jumped out in front of the retina of his right eye. Will of Fire System, new Will of Fire Weapon. Yakushi Nono's side mission target. Inject the Will of Fire into Yakushi Nono. Side mission reward. Storm release possibility. Sarutobi Ryo. The following days were calm and peaceful. Everything was not too turbulent. As the squad leader of Umbu Squad 6, Sarutobi Ryo led his team on missions many times. Kakashi Tsukumo officially joined the Hokage's direct Umbu and received the Hokage's direct protection. As a new Chunin, Might Guy performed well. Guy's face became more and more confident, shaking off the haze of the past. He proudly told people about his father Might Dewey's deeds and was deeply proud of it. Some subtle things are also continuing. A certain street on the edge of Konoha, a row of buildings here was renovated, knocked and beaten, and a brand new structure was built. Yakushi Nono had some savings from performing missions in the past. Sarutobi Ryo also invested in the orphanage and invested in construction. After a month of repairs, the old house was brand new and became an orphanage. Yakushi Nono's application for retirement was approved by Sarutobi Hiruzen. The qualification to run the orphanage was also successfully implemented. Among them, Sarutobi Ryo naturally contributed a lot to dredge various joints. In the end, the orphanage was successfully operating. Those homeless children were slowly sent here, and the orphans also affectionately called Yakushi Nono director. During this period, a fat nanny named Carrie and a middle-aged scholar named Kemp joined the orphanage and became staff members. According to the original history, Yakushi Nono should have left Konoha and established an orphanage in a town on the border of the Land of Fire, near Mt. Kikyo. But because of witnessing Sarutobi Ryo's actions and the result of saving Kakashi Tsukumo, Yakushi Nono finally decided to stay in Konoha, to do her part for the practice of the true will of fire and the arrival of a bright future. Hee. This morning, the sun was shining. The children ran around in the yard. Yakushi Nono smiled and watched this scene, and the ideal of the second half of her life was fulfilled. Sarutobi Ryo stood beside her, still expressionless. Ryo Shasama, the orphanage could be successfully operated, really thanks to your help. Yakushi Nono turned her head and looked at the handsome young man beside her, and the love in her heart slowly rose. In the past month, the two have had many interactions. Regarding the design, approval, decoration, and material selection of the orphanage, the list of children, etc., they have worked together a lot. In this process, some emotions quietly sprouted. It is the secretion of hormones, and it is also the embodiment of Sarutobi Ryo's personality. Really, thank you very much, Yakushi Nono said from the bottom of her heart. And in the next second, Sarutobi Ryo turned his head and stared at her. I have received the meaning of thanks, so what do you plan? How to thank me specifically? That night, the lights went out, and everything was silent. The children in the orphanage were all asleep. The spacious courtyard was quiet, and the entire three-story building was located in the beautiful moonlight. The sleeping time of the orphanage is 9 p.m. At this time, it was already midnight. The lights on the third floor were still on. Yakushi Nono kept telling various information she had collected over the years, from the 5 major countries to the various small ninja villages. Through her sorted scrolls and oral accounts, Sarutobi Ryo learned many secrets of the ninja world. The conversation will eventually come to an end. When the last note fell, Yakushi Nono's description also came to an end. Talking heart to heart, she almost said everything she knew, with various precious information, as a thank you for Sarutobi Ryo's construction of the orphanage. Oh, Sarutobi Ryo sat on the chair, staring at the nun opposite. Yakushi Nono, who became the director of the orphanage, still had a holy expression. With the nun's habit, she has more of a clergy's posture. But even the nun's habit that is so conservative that it covers her hands and feet still can't hide her impressive figure. Ryo Shasama. Yakushi Nono watched Sarutobi Ryo stand up and slowly walk towards her. Sarutobi Ryo approached Yakushi Nono and looked down at the nun sitting on the chair from a high position. Being stared at by Sarutobi Ryo's hot gaze, Yakushi Nono slowly lowered her head, her fingers scratching wrinkles on the skirt. 64. Section 64 Snap. Click. The light switch was suddenly turned off. The light in the room dimmed accordingly. Before Nono could react, her vision suddenly spun. In just an instant, Sarutobi Ryo threw her somewhere. The girl's body bounced a few times before finally settling. Chill. Sarutobi Ryo's handsome face, accompanied by the movement of his fingers, suddenly appeared in front of Nono. In the hazy night, rustling sounds echoed. The Sarutobi clan summoned beast transformed into a weapon. The Vajra staff was slowly rising. Miss Nono, there are still some things I don't quite understand about taijutsu. I hope you can enlighten me. Sarutobi Ryo said softly, like the murmur of the night. Sizzle. At a certain moment, Nono's body suddenly trembled, as if struck hard, her head tilting back, revealing her swan-like white neck. Sarutobi Ryo unexpectedly ambushed her with taijutsu. Smack! Nono quickly covered her mouth, her brows furrowed, trying not to let out a cry of pain. Drip! Crimson blood flowed out, indicating she was injured. Sarutobi Ryo launched another attack. Creak! The night's taijutsu sparring began. Chapter 13. Powe Nono successful. The night deepened. Sarutobi Ryo attacked fiercely, his offensive becoming more and more violent. The Vajra staff was as easy to control as an arm, almost killing his opponent. Nono endured bitterly, completely unable to counter Sarutobi Ryo's taijutsu. Like a small boat in the ocean, she could only be ravaged by the storm. Steel release. At a certain moment, Sarutobi Ryo murmured softly. Steel Release Kekkai Genkai Infusion, doubling the power of his taijutsu. Through her fingers, Nono couldn't help but let out a groan. The Steel Release ninjutsu was as hard as steel and as solid as the earth. Uzumaki Mito's noble face flashed before Sarutobi Ryo's eyes. He used a powerful B-rank water release ninjutsu as the finishing move for the sparring. Sarutobi Ryo released it wantonly, regardless of Nono's reaction. Chi. For a long time, the sparring in the darkness finally came to a true end. Will of Fire complete. Poof! Sarutobi Ryo retreated, admiring his spoils. The traces of the taijutsu battle were everywhere, and the water-release ninjutsu had completely destroyed the scene. Even so, the darkness in Sarutobi Ryo's heart had not diminished by half. He glanced at the time, and it was already 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. There was still a long time before dawn. Sarutobi Ryo once again assumed his stance, displaying his taijutsu, his moves unleashed fiercely. Sizzle. No. Bang. 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 The constellations shifted. Darkness receded, and tomorrow arrived. When the 9 o'clock morning sun shone into the dome on the 3rd floor. Nono blinked her eyebrows and slowly woke up. When she realized what had happened, her eyes widened suddenly, and then her eyelids slowly drooped again, a blush appearing on her face. Nono, you're awake. The sun shone in from outside. Sarutobi Ryo sat in a chair, reading the scroll of information Nono had written yesterday. I've already told Granny Kelly and the others that you're too tired, so you're taking a day off today. Nono didn't speak, but instead showed a shy expression. I still have something I'm busy with that I want you to help with. Regarding the analysis of the Storm Release Ninja, Korwa no Sarui's remains. He briefly explained the request. Although Nono had retired, she still retained all her skills. Now she stayed in Konoha, not far away. He could ask her for help at any time. As a medical ninja with exceptional talent, Nono's level was second only to Tsunade. It was definitely no problem to ask her to help with research. At first, Sarutobi Ryo wanted to continue looking for Noera Rin. But considering that Noera Rin was busy with graduation matters, he didn't plan to disturb her during this time. Coincidentally, Nono was the most suitable candidate at the moment. Nono nodded slightly. What happened last night established a special connection between her and Sarutobi Ryo. The imprint of the will of fire clearly appeared where it should. Rest well. Sarutobi Ryo put away the scroll, got up, walked over, and gently stroked Nono's cheek before leaving the room. When the door closed, Nono pulled up the quilt, her gaze changing several times, and finally revealed a look of anticipation for a beautiful future. A week later, a secret room covered with barriers. After a few days of hard work, Nono successfully deciphered the information in the corpse. Because the corpse was relatively intact, the amount of information that could be obtained was quite large. From the corpse, Nono analyzed the combination method of the 2 attributes of water plus lightning. With Sarutobi Ryo pointing out the principles of the formula from the side, the 2 cooperated and complemented each other, successfully analyzing the mysteries of the storm release Kekkai Genkai. At least, Sarutobi Ryo could try to imitate and fuse the 2 attributes. Of course, Nono didn't know if there would be good results, but Sarutobi Ryo knew that he would definitely succeed. Because will of fire weapon, Nono, progress, 100%, reward, storm release fusion method. Since that day, Nono had followed him wholeheartedly without any second thoughts. Taking away her most precious thing had completely turned this conservative-minded girl into a close person. Nono, thank you for your hard work. I believe I can definitely fuse the storm release Kekkai Genkai. Sarutobi Ryo's mouth curled slightly, quite satisfied with the result. Young Master Ryo, it is your knowledge that has opened my eyes. Nono couldn't help but smile and respond. The strength, character, and talent of this young master in front of her were all excellent. Nono felt that Konoha would surely usher in a bright future. Young Master Ryo possessed Steel Release and Ice Release. If he also possessed Storm Release, it would be equivalent to possessing 3 Kekkei Genkai, something that had never happened in the ninja world. This kind of idea was only had by the classmate of the past Sannin, a ninja named Hiruzen. But after all, ideas were just ideas. After Hiruzen's betrayal, he fled Konoha. Right now, young Master Ryo might indeed become the first ninja in the ninja world to possess 3 Kekkei Genkai. However, Nono was slightly worried. Young Master Ryo, Kekkei Genkai, are things that permanently change the human body's DNA. 65. Section 65, whether it's a mutated organ type of Kekkei Genkai, like the Sharingan or Byakugan, or a combination of dual attribute chakra, like ice release or steel release. Both of these types will have unpredictable effects on the human body. If multiple Kekkei Genkai exist in one body, will conflicts arise? Can the body withstand it? These are all unknowns. No problem, don't worry. Sarutobi Ryo nodded. With the system by his side, coupled with the performances of Orochimaru, Uchihara, and the Sage of Six Paths Naruto, the simultaneous addition of multiple Kekkei Genkai would not have any unpredictable dangers. As long as he doesn't touch the Sharingan and Hashirama cells, there won't be any major risks or burdens. Simultaneously possessing ice release and steel release, Sarutobi Ryo only felt himself becoming stronger and stronger. After learning storm release, how strong would he become? Thinking of the laser attack released by Sarui, the speed of light at 300,000 kilometers per second, Sarutobi Ryo's heart became fiery, wishing he could sit down and cultivate immediately. Nono also saw Sarutobi Ryo's eagerness for the path of cultivation. She immediately said, very sensibly, "Then I should go back and rest when I master storm release. I'll go to the orphanage to find you." Before Nono stepped out of the secret room, Sarutobi Ryo made a promise. Nono lowered her head. Her face blushed, and she softly hummed an agreement before quickly walking away. Shadow, clone jutsu. Sarutobi Ryo didn't stand on ceremony and immediately sat down cross-legged, casting 12 shadow clones. Having 2 Kekkei Genkai enhanced his physical qualities significantly. Even the upper limit of the number of shadow clones was increased accordingly. The more chakra, the stronger the physical qualities, the more shadow clones can be created, and the longer the duration of the shadow clones who could refuse this kind of positive cycle. 12 shadow clones, 12 times the cultivation speed. Storm release, I'm determined to get it. Chapter 14. Rin's graduation ceremony, new weapon Hyuga, Natsu time flies. The Ninja Academy welcomed another batch of graduating students. Noera Rin stood on the stage as the representative of the Ninja Academy graduates and delivered the graduation speech. Congratulations. Congratulations. Warm applause rang out from the audience. Faces came into view. Noera Rin held the speech draft, her eyes casually glancing around the scene. Just a casual wandering gaze flickered a few times before quickly settling on a certain spot. Ryo-sama? Noera Rin blinked, confirming that she hadn't seen wrong. Why would Ryo-sama appear at the graduation ceremony? Generally speaking, family members of the graduates would come to the graduation ceremony. Is it because of the Sarutobi clan's graduates? Only after the graduation ceremony ended did Noera Rin realize that he was waiting for her. Noera Rin slightly raised her head. This scene was quite poetic and picturesque. She thought of her past interactions with Ryo-sama, and her cheeks couldn't help but blush slightly. People at different stages of life, their thoughts, considerations, and even their values are completely different. Sarutobi Ryo knew exactly what this age's little girl was thinking. At tomorrow's briefing, she will be assigned a Jonin instructor by the higher-ups. Sarutobi Ryo already knew that she would join Minato Namikaze's command. As a medical talent possibly second only to Tsunade, the higher-ups' deliberate arrangement did indeed have its purpose. Creating a conspicuous team for Minato Namikaze was what the higher-ups wanted to do. Commoner ninjas slowly rising to power is the trend of times. No one can stop it, although later it will return to family and bloodline. Shursui Uchiha's tragic change. Nono's changes these things made Sarutobi Ryo have more expectations for the future. He also believed that he could change the tragedy that happened to Noera Rin. Noera Rin possessed the will of fire. In the original work, she sacrificed herself for the village, not others. This character was enough for Sarutobi Ryo to express his appreciation. At the graduation ceremony, a special occasion equivalent to one of the important nodes in Noera Rin's life, his appearance and interaction with her will deepen many things. From now on, you can be listed in the medical team. Sarutobi Ryo smiled slightly and started chatting. Different departments have different title requirements. Talents like Noera Rin can be listed in the medical team during the Genin period and belong to it. Part of the resources of Konoha's medical system will also be open to her. Noera Rin chatted with Sarutobi Ryo. She was an extremely intelligent girl, so she quickly guessed Sarutobi Ryo's intention. Ryo-sama, do you want me to help? Last time, analyzing the remains of the Yuki clan benefited Noera Rin herself a lot. However, Sarutobi Ryo's answer was beyond her expectations. No, I came today just to congratulate you. Of course, there will be many things in the Umbu's work that require your help in the future, and the rewards will not be small. Sarutobi Ryo's gentle expression was revealed. While others treated Noera Rin as a child, Sarutobi Ryo used some tricks, and the result was already obvious. This made Noera Rin feel respected and her own obvious sense of existence. Noera Rin, whose goal was to heal the wounded and save lives and become a medical ninja no less than Tsunade, was very eager to show herself, even if she might not have noticed this idea in her heart. Rin, can I invite you to dinner? Inviting to dinner is a courtesy for adults to talk to each other. Noera Rin naturally agreed happily. Rin. At this moment, Obito ran over panting. He had also successfully graduated. Ryo-sama? Obito stopped and looked at Sarutobi Ryo, who appeared here with some surprise. Sarutobi Ryo also looked at Obito. Noera Rin, who was observing the words and expressions, quickly made a decision. Obito, Ryo-sama has some Umbu matters to discuss with me. I'll leave first. Obito looked at Rin and Ryo-sama's departing figures and scratched his hair. For some reason, he felt a little lost in his heart. Ryo-sama. On the way, other family members who came to attend the graduation ceremony greeted Sarutobi Ryo. Among them, Sarutobi Ryo saw Hyuga Hizashi's figure. Every year, there are children from the Hyuga clan graduating, which is not surprising. But the graduating girl standing next to Hyuga Hizashi caught Sarutobi Ryo's attention. Short dark green hair, white eyes, and a gentle look in her eyes. She was the same age as Noera Rin, and, judging from her forehead, she was from the Hyuga clan's branch family. It's Hyuga Natsu, the Hyuga maid who appeared in the TV animation, who later took care of Hyuga Hinata and Hyuga Hanabi. In this era, the two main family heirs have not yet been born. Therefore, Hyuga Natsu will serve others. Probably Hyuga Hayashi's fiancé. Just taking a casual glance, just as Sarutobi Ryo was about to leave his system, prompt suddenly popped up on this branch family girl named Hyuga Natsu. Will of Fire System. New Will of Fire Weapon. Hyuga Natsu side quest objective. Inject the Will of Fire into Hyuga Natsu. Side quest reward. Hyuga exclusive chakra control skills branch family, Sarutobi Ryo. At the same time, Sarutobi clan's residence. Sarutobi Ryo sat cross-legged in the underground space. The expanded underground area is now larger and has become a small training ground. 11 shadow clones and Sarutobi Ryo's main body are sitting here together. That's right, the person who went to the Ninja Academy just now to attend Noera Rin's graduation ceremony was just a shadow clone. At the critical moment of cultivation, Sarutobi Ryo's main body could not leave. Noera Rin also graduated today. After comprehensive consideration, Sarutobi Ryo chose to send a shadow clone to go. At this time, the shadow clone was leaving the Ninja Academy with Noera Rin and heading towards the street. Because the relationship was not lifted, Sarutobi Ryo did not know what happened there. Sarutobi Ryo, who was focused on cultivation, changed his expression several times. 66, Section 66. At one moment, he suddenly opened his eyes. All 11 shadow clones dispelled at once. Sarutobi Ryo stood up from his cross-legged position, his right palm extended flat. Aiming his palm at the empty space, with a buzz, a beam of light emerged. This beam of light was bluish-white. The scorching light shone on the prepared paper. The paper instantly burned, was pierced through, and then the light projected onto a thin wooden board. Wisps of green smoke curled upwards. The wooden board quickly turned charred black, burned, and then was pierced through, continuing to project onto the stone wall underground. If you looked closely, you could see that this bluish-white laser was gathering more and more energy. Or rather, it was becoming thinner and thinner. This was the convergence of photons, also a manifestation of particle concentration. In the end, this laser became as thin as a strand of hair. Although thin, because of the high concentration of energy, it possessed powerful burning and penetrating power. It's a success. Looking at the light projected from his palm in the darkness, Sarutobi Ryo's lips curled up, and he let out a long sigh of relief. The brightness of the unit cross-section of this laser in front of him was almost comparable to the sun. Its essence was derived from the fusion of water plus lightning, a chakra technique. Because the energy was highly concentrated, the temperature would also become extremely exaggerated. Coupled with the characteristics of storm release itself, it could almost cut and melt most substances. Of course, the specific time depended on the structure of the substance being cut. For example, human fat might be burned and severed in an instant. If it were a stone wall, it might only leave some burn marks. And as the laser power increased, sooner or later, even substances such as stone and steel could be easily cut. But the amount of chakra consumed also needs to increase exponentially. Recalling the original work, the various manifestations of storm release. Ordinary storm release and Uchiha Madara's Six Paths Storm Release Sage art had vastly different effects. The storm release of the Six Paths Sage art could even instantly cut through truth-seeking balls. It could be seen how powerful the upper limit of this bloodline limit was. But no matter what, relying on a light speed emission rate of 300,000 kilometers per second, coupled with the characteristic of cutting through anything, the threat of the storm release bloodline limit could be directly maxed out. The rest was the power issue, whether it only burned the skin or cut people in half. The specific emission power could be further tested to be classified and mastered. Of course, the seemingly BUG-like storm release also had many flaws. For example, the farther the laser transmission distance, the more severe the attenuation. A few meters away, it had almost no killing power. In this case, the stronger the enemy's strength, the stronger their physical quality, and the damage they received would be even more halved. So, I can increase the power or use it in close combat. Thinking carefully, if a storm release laser was suddenly fired during close combat, how many people could dodge it? However, this move puts too much burden on the meridians. Sarutobi Ryo looked at his palm. The inside of his arm was aching faintly. Without Byakugan or Sharingan, Sarutobi Ryo knew that this was due to the overload of meridians within his body. Medical ninjutsu could heal muscles and skin, and even bones. But there was no way to repair the meridians. Once the meridians through which chakra flowed were permanently damaged, they could no longer conduct chakra. So, this move cannot be used frequently. It must be used as a trump card. Putting down his palm, Sarutobi Ryo prepared to rest for a while. He would go outside directly to see how Noera Rin was doing. Seamlessly switching with a shadow clone was a very simple matter. When Sarutobi Ryo went to find Noera Rin, several travelers were welcomed at the entrance of Konoha. The person at the head was about the same age as Noera Rin, but her expression was slightly firm. Behind her were two subordinates. The three of them were full of Jianghu aura. This is Konoha. Girin looked at the crowds coming and going. It was her first time in Konoha. After a period of training and commanding the transportation company, her temperament had also changed somewhat. She had become more capable, with the appearance of a strong woman. Relying on her own skills, she easily ruled all the samurai, ronin, and ordinary people under her command. This time she came to Konoha in addition to seeing the world. It was to deliver money to Sarutobi Ryo and discuss the subsequent development direction. Girin was already preparing to open the transportation company to the land of waves on the other side, as Sarutobi Ryo had said. Let's go. She waved her hand and quickly walked into the vast crowd. The alley next to the restaurant. The shadow clone and Sarutobi Ryo's main body faced each other. As a shadow clone dispelled, various pieces of information were received by the main body. When Sarutobi Ryo realized that a new will of fire weapon had appeared, his face could not help but become strange. That Hyuganatsu was still young, about the same age as Noera. What did the system mean by this? Even if he wanted to inject the will of fire into her, he would need to wait a few more years. No, there was more than one way to inject the will of fire. Thinking of Hyuga Ruri and Nonoyu, winning hearts could also obtain a certain amount of progress, even a large portion of progress. Hyuga Ruri's tragic fate was one of the tragedies that Sarutobi Ryo was committed to changing. Being teammates for so many years, everyone had feelings. The true will of fire was to protect cherished people or things. If there's a chance, I will contact her a little. Perhaps Hyuganatsu is a very good breakthrough point. Thinking this way, Sarutobi Ryo turned and walked into the restaurant. After lunch, Sarutobi Ryo chose to actively send Noera home. This scene could not help but remind Noera of that night. However, this time it was daytime. It had been a long time since she had seen Kakashi. His voice and appearance seemed to have become blurred. Noera knew that this was due to the nature of human memory. After being separated for a period of time, they would feel that each other had become unfamiliar. After being together again for a period of time, they would return to the previous feeling. Was that so? Thinking of this, Noera looked up at her side. His firm and handsome profile, carrying a mature aura. This was something that Kakashi could not compare to. In fact, Kakashi was no longer the Kakashi in the original work, or rather, Kakashi would embark on a completely different path in life. Hatake Tsukumo had not died. Kakashi would not be severely hit. He was still the proud and arrogant young man. And at this moment in the original work, Kakashi had already begun to become cold and ruthless, focusing on tasks, regardless of teammates. Thus, the rumor spread, don't team up with Hatake Kakashi, he is inhuman. Perhaps Noera would like a more mature and elite Kakashi. But that Kakashi no longer existed. Kakashi, who had not been beaten by an iron fist, would only carry a trace of immature naivety. This widened the gap between him and herself. Sarutobi Ryo and Noera quickly arrived at the door of her house. Young Master Ryo, come in and have a cup of tea before you leave. 67, Section 67, A girl, in the throes of first love. Rin Nohara's eyes sparkled. Perhaps even she wasn't fully aware of this budding emotion. Sarutobi Ryo, however, understood it well. It was the dawning of adolescence, the surge of hormones, not truly love in its purest form. But if it continued, step by step, it could potentially transform into genuine affection. All right, Sarutobi Ryo smiled slightly and entered the Jinkan with Rin Noera. Boss, the owner went inside. 2, Ronin reported. Yeah, then let's wait. Girin's tone was rather mature for her age. The three of them stood outside near a tree. Chapter 16. Wealthy young Master Sarutobi Ryo, preparations before the Third Shinobi World War. Master, this is this month's income. After Sarutobi Ryo left Rin Nohara's house and returned to the Sarutobi clan's mansion, Girin reported on the month's operational status. With the continuation of peace after the war, the economies of various countries were thriving. After the port was integrated, the business grew larger and larger. Looking at the string of zeros at the end of the bank book in front of him, Sarutobi Ryo couldn't help but fall into deep thought. As everyone knows, a D-rank mission starts at 3,000 Ryo for a full commission. A C-rank mission starts at 30,000 Ryo. A B-rank mission starts at 80,000 Ryo. An A-rank mission starts at 150,000 Ryo. An S-rank mission starts at 1 million Ryo. Note that this is pre-tax. Generally speaking, The village takes a 50% cut when executing a mission. The rest is divided equally according to the number of people. In other words, a powerful Konoha ninja can earn up to 500,000 Ryo for single-handedly executing an S-rank mission. What does this mean? In the original story, Minato Namikaze completed S-rank missions 39 times. It can be assumed that Minato Namikaze earned a possible 20 million Ryo solely from S-rank missions. But the problem is, Ringo Yururi, mixing in the underground black market, could easily get a starting bounty of 5 million Ryo for killing a Jonin. The corpses of the Guardian Shinobi 12 could be sold for 20 million to 30 million Ryo. Minato Namikaze painstakingly completing 39 S-rank missions, only to earn 20 million Ryo. So the question is it easier to make money as a bounty hunter in the underground black market? Or is Konoha's cut too high? Sarutobi Ryo carefully counted the net profit for this month. Several million Ryo were easily obtained. It should be known that the port operated by Sarutobi Ryo is an inconspicuous existence among the many ports in the Land of Fire. Even such a small place can generate several million Ryo in net profit per month. Then why bother contributing to the Konoha higher-ups and risking his life? Shaking his head, he accepted the bank book. The end of the Second Shinobi World War is not the end. The 5 great nations were not severely damaged in the last war. Sarutobi Ryo began to explain the Shinobi world situation to Girin. Another war is coming. Girin's pupils shrank, finding it hard to imagine. Yes, before long, the Shinobi world will be in turmoil again. Sarutobi Ryo's gaze was intense as he stared at the lavender-haired girl. Next, I will test your training progress over this period. Without waiting for Girin to react, Sarutobi Ryo directly created a shadow clone and began to beat up the little girl. Girin's cries of pain and moans echoed. At this moment, Yamanaka Kei walked in from outside. Before even reaching the door, she heard strange sounds coming from inside. Wow, no way. Could it be that the young master has really become so depraved as to lay his hands on a child? She peeked in quietly, discovering that it was just ordinary training beating up a child. Yamanaka Kei's expression changed. It was unclear whether it was disappointment or something else. The girl, naturally evil at heart, seemed to be hoping for chaos in the world. Okay, how did things go? Having noticed the peeking girl, Sarutobi Ryo walked over. Young master, this is the land deed. Yamanaka Kei reached out. This old mansion beneath their feet, which was the Sarutobi clan's ancestral home, was owned by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi Ryo had started handling the procedures these past few days. He spent money to buy the ancestral home from his old man's hands, making it his own property. Initially, Sarutobi Hiruzen was very astonished, but thinking that his son was promising, not only strong, but also possessing the will of fire, and also able to make money, he happily satisfied his son's wish. But in fact, things weren't that simple. In Konoha, to gain a foothold, one must have a foundation. The simplest way to put it is to have your own house. This ancestral home, after Sarutobi Ryo's repeated modifications, had already begun to be transformed into a manor, or rather, a fortress. The underground space was constantly being expanded, serving as a training room, cultivation room, and even a prison. In the future, Sarutobi Ryo would do many things here. He might even directly demolish the old mansion and build rows of interconnected high-rise buildings. As the number of subordinates increased, more and more people would move in. Even welcoming guests would require a place to stay, wouldn't it? Sarutobi Ryo took the land deed and glanced at it. The transfer procedures had been completed, and the transaction funds had been paid to the seller through an intermediary, which was his own old man, Sarutobi Hiruzen. According to market price, Sarutobi Ryo spent a large sum of money to purchase it. Okay, next you hire a group of craftsmen to start renovating the old mansion. Also, from now on, hoard a large amount of supplies, especially food, because the Third Shinobi World War would begin before long. From the initial friction to small-scale probing, mutual invasion of the border to full-scale war. Before that, enough food needed to be prepared. Once the war started, a large number of refugees would flood into Konoha. At that time, prices would skyrocket. Sarutobi Ryo certainly wasn't planning to profit from the nation's disaster. Rather, he planned to at least prevent more refugees from starving to death at that time. This was also why he wanted to expand the port transportation industry to the Land of Waves. The Land of Waves was a neutral country. Even if a war broke out, it would be minimally affected, which could ensure that his industry wouldn't suffer much damage. Let's do that for now. Instructing Yamanaka K to do these things. Sarutobi Ryo himself also sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate his storm release and other skills. Girin's cries of pain continued to echo, being knocked down again and again, getting up again and again. The factors in her bloodline gradually awakened. One day, she would fuse the bloodline limit known as crystal release. Time flowed by. The days passed one by one. Sarutobi Ryo refined his storm release and carried out multiple Umbu missions during this period. In terms of aptitude and strength, Sarutobi Ryo was already qualified to take on the position of Umbu Squad 6 leader. He only needed a suitable opportunity or a major mission to prove himself and establish merit, so that he could convince everyone and successfully rise in rank. And as time passed, the progress of the first stage of the main quest prompted by the system gradually increased. When the system prompted that the main quest progress had reached 95%, Sarutobi Ryo understood that this day had arrived. 68. Section 68. Young Master Ryo. The Hokage wishes to see you. That morning, an Umbu operative arrived to deliver the message. Sarutobi Ryo nodded and headed to the Hokage Tower with Yamanaka Inoichi. In a conference room on the first floor, Hatake Tsukumo had also been summoned. Many of Konoha's top officials were gathered. Sarutobi Ryo even saw an unexpected One-Isan figure, a Sunagakure ninja, Pakura of the Scorch Release. Chapter 17. Pakura of the Scorch Release. The long-legged One-Isan, the woman before him, had fair skin, an alluring figure, and long legs. She was none other than Sunagakure's hero, Pakura of the Scorch Release. She was the same age as himself and Minato Namikaze, and had long been famous. Pakura was known for her Scorch Release, Kekei Genkai. Throughout the ninja world, there were probably only a handful of ninjas who possessed Scorch Release. Combined with the immense destructive power and versatility of Scorch Release, it could be said that Pakura was Sunagakure's treasure and a remarkable talent. So, what wind had blown her here? Had the third Kazekage gone missing? Probably not. If that were the case, the Umbu would have received intelligence about Sunagakure ninjas frantically searching for the third Kazekage's whereabouts. After the Second Shinobi World War, Sunagakure and Konoha had signed a ceasefire agreement. Her arrival might trigger diplomatic changes. You are Sarutobi Ryo? Seeing Sarutobi Ryo walk in, Pakura sized him up with a hand on her hip. The Land of Wind was covered in sand. Despite being constantly exposed to sandstorms in the vast desert, her beautiful skin remained unaffected. This was clearly due to the effect of the Scorch Release, Kekei Genkai. Scorch Release permanently altered Pakura's DNA, granting her resistance to wind and even heat. After all, prolonged travel and exposure to the scorching sun would damage the skin. Yet, Pakura was wearing a backless outfit, exposing her arms, legs, and back, fully displaying her confidence in her figure. Interesting. Sarutobi Ryo sat down, facing Pakura across the table. She seemed to have some opinions about this second-generation identity. Pakura casually placed her fair, slender arm on the table and looked at Sarutobi Ryo with her chin raised, saying, "I didn't see you much on the battlefield during the last war. Could it be that you were squatting in the back watching the show?" From the start, the atmosphere was tense. Sarutobi Ryo expressionlessly sized up and admired the woman before him. The situation in Sunagakure was also quite interesting. Raza, who would become Gaara's father in the future, was a disciple of the third Kazekage. If nothing went wrong, Raza would be the next Kazekage. Bloodlines, inheritance, connections, everyone understood. But the problem was, Pakura, a commoner, had climbed up from the bottom step by step. The rules of the ninja world survival of the fittest. Only those who survive in harsh environments are the strong. Pakura retorted without hesitation. At this moment, Pakura didn't notice the changed expressions of Yuditane, Koharu, and Mikoto Hamura. Even Hiruzen Sarutobi lowered the brim of his hat, obscuring his face. Konoha, Sunagakure, and Awagakure had invaded the Land of Rain during the Second Shinobi World War, which was an undeniable fact. Hiruzen Sarutobi felt ashamed of this. Yuditane Koharu and Mikoto Hamura felt angry. Even if it was true, you shouldn't go around saying it. JPG only Danzo remained silent, looking at his nose and mouth, acting as if he knew everything. That was what it meant to have thick skin. Survival of the fittest, huh? Sarutobi Ryo nodded, not intending to criticize Pakura's thoughts. People were shaped by their environment. People who grew up in different environments had completely different ideas. The environment in the Land of Wind is indeed too harsh. If the countries had agreed to give Sunagakure an oasis during the first 5 Kage summit, things might not be the way they are today. Pakura, Sarutobi Ryo's words surprised Pakura. She never expected such a development. She had thought that this second-generation young master would have the face of a politician, but she never expected. Why has Sunagakure been at war for years? Isn't it because the environment is too harsh? Even having enough to eat is a problem, and water is extremely scarce. Sarutobi Ryo began to speak great truths haphazardly. In such an environment, not only do the countries not give Sunagakure a piece of green land, but they also don't allow Sunagakure to go out and fight. That doesn't make sense. People were starving. You still wanted them to abide by benevolence, righteousness, and morality. That was clearly unrealistic. Back then, at the first 5 Kage summit, Sunagakure stated that they had Shikaku. That's right, both the official manga and the TV anime clearly stated that. The first Kazekage of Sunagakure, Redo, was able to capture Ichibi himself, and Ichibi had always been properly sealed by Sunagakure, unrelated to Hashirama Senju. Sunagakure requested not the other tailed beasts captured by Hashirama Senju, but rather they requested control of an oasis. However, this was met with the joint opposition of the 4 great nations. The Reikage, Tsuchikage, Tobarama Senju, Mizukage even said that if Sunagakure really did that, the 4 great nations would unite and attack Sunagakure. In the end, Sunagakure didn't get the tailed beasts, nor did they get the oasis. As for what they did get, I don't know. That could only be asked to the parties involved. Fortunately, there were still witnesses from that time alive, such as the 3rd Tsuchikage, Anoki, such as the 3rd Kazekage. That's right, although the 3rd Kazekage was just a child back then, he had experienced the teachings of the 1st and 2nd Kazekage after all. He understood what happened at that time very well. Sarutobi Ryo's words left Pakura speechless. After all, since the other party was so reasonable, it wouldn't be appropriate to give them a fierce look, would it? So, Pakura directly turned her gaze to the 3rd Hokage. Hokage-sama, you really have a good son? Although there was still ridicule in her words, the appreciation within was clearly perceptible to everyone. A tense diplomatic situation ultimately led to a peaceful negotiation. Then, Pakura of the Scorch Release, please tell us the purpose of your visit to Konoha this time. Sarutobi Ryo asked the question in a neither humble nor arrogant manner. In the blink of an eye, he had seized the initiative in the situation. Everyone else became a foil at this moment. The diplomatic venue became the battleground for the 2 young people. As everyone knows, the relationship between our Sunagakure and your village, Konoha, has always been quite strained. Pakura slowly opened her mouth. The Kazekage-sama wants to take this opportunity to change the relationship between the 2 sides. Cooperation and win-win? The idea is good, but the timing is not ripe. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head, thinking to himself, there is absolutely no possibility of cooperation between Konoha and Sunagakure. It had been said many times before. During the Second Shinobi World War, not only did the countries not suffer much loss, but they also became prosperous by plundering small countries, leading to an expansion of national power. Under such circumstances, Sunagakure and the Land of Wind could not support too many people. An increasingly surging military force would only drag the Land of Wind into the vortex of war. In addition, Konoha and other countries would not agree to let Sunagakure occupy fertile land. So, war was bound to break out again. Of course, the key point was that the other villages were unwilling to concede to Sunagakure. Sarutobi Ryo had no intention of commenting on the right or wrong of this matter. But since they had made the decision not to give Sunagakure an oasis, not intending to try to trust them, then they should naturally be prepared to fight each other, shouldn't they? It was still the same sentence. The path was chosen by the leaders of each country themselves. Ask for a hammer, and you shall receive. Ask for benevolence, and you shall receive. After some polite words, Pakura once again looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hokage-sama, our Sunagakure has already shown sincerity. Now it's up to your Konoha. Chapter 18. Minato's anxiety, of course. Our Konoha also has the sincerity to negotiate. Udatane Koharu spoke first. As soon as she spoke, Sarutobi Ryo knew she was going to cause trouble again. Sure enough, in the next sentence, Udatane Koharu said, "We will also send diplomatic personnel to your Sunagakure." As she spoke, she looked at Hatake Tsukumo. How about letting Tsukumo make a trip to Sunagakure? 69. Section 69. Good heavens. Chiyo is a high-ranking member of Sunagakure and the Kazekage's assistant. While Tsukumo Hatake once killed Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law, he has killed countless Sunagakure ninjas. This is clearly a trap to make Tsukumo Hatake attract hatred. It would be a miracle if they could reach an agreement. Clearly, the higher-ups not only don't plan to have a real discussion with Sunagakure, but also want to use this opportunity to continue to set up Tsukumo Hatake. But they forgot one thing. The current Tsukumo Hatake is not the Tsukumo Hatake of the past. After this period of contemplation, Tsukumo Hatake has realized that the only path he can take is to become the fourth Hokage, not only to protect himself and his son Kakashi. To change the world of Konoha, becoming Hokage is an indispensable step. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. Not to mention a strong person like Tsukumo Hatake. Koharu Udatane and the others don't realize that they are cutting off their own escape route, pushing Tsukumo Hatake completely to their opposite side step by step. After the visiting diplomatic meeting ended, Ebizo was arranged for accommodation and temporarily stayed. Sarutobi Ryo, Tsukumo Hatake, Minato Namikaze, and others were arranged to go to Sunagakure. If Tsukumo Hatake's arrangement was a deliberate trap by the higher-ups, then Minato Namikaze's departure has another meaning. Trying to push Minato Namikaze to the next Hokage position, many trials for him are indispensable. This time's mission to Sunagakure may not be without the idea of having Tsukumo Hatake play the bad guy role and Minato Namikaze play the good guy role. But in any case, the Konoha higher-ups would never have imagined. This Sunagakure mission is extremely dangerous. The third Kazekage is likely to be poisoned to death by Sasori at this juncture. When that time comes, it will be hard to say who will be blamed. Sarutobi Ryo thoughtfully pondered this mission. Minato Namikaze, who was on the side, was also lost in thought. According to the original history, the third Kazekage will eventually die at the hands of Sasori. Having been to Mount Maiboku, and having been guided by the great Toad Sage, Minato Namikaze is almost equivalent to starting a second life. Having witnessed the original future, he directly possesses the god's perspective. After the third Kazekage died, the ninjas of Sunagakure frantically searched for his whereabouts. No one believed that the third Kazekage would be killed. Even when Sasori of the Red Sand defected at that time, no one suspected him. After all, the third Kazekage is known as the strongest Kazekage. Chiyo's little grandson was just a Chunin at the time. No one would associate the third Kazekage's disappearance with Sasori's defection. It wasn't until more than 10 years later in the Land of Rivers, Sakura Haruno and Chiyo jointly witnessed the scene of the third Kazekage being made into a human puppet, and the truth was revealed. So, should he just watch the third Kazekage die? Minato Namikaze turned his head and looked at the two people beside him, Tsukumo Hatake and Sarutobi Ryo. The White Fang of Konoha, who should have committed suicide at home, is now alive and kicking, and has also joined the Hokage's direct Umbu squad. Konoha will have much less pressure in the subsequent Third Shinobi World War. With the talent of the White Fang of Konoha, he can steadily sit in the position of fourth Hokage. Anxiety began to sprout in Minato Namake's heart. But the next moment, his mind was horrified. Why did he unconsciously have these bad thoughts? Minato Namake's immediately shook his head, dispelling the haze in his heart. But there is a worry that always lingers in his heart. If Tsukumo-sensei becomes the fourth Hokage, Kushina is still the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. That's right. But at that time, the difficulty of marrying Kushina will increase a lot, because Jinchuriki are existences that are deeply bound to the Kage. If the relationship between the Kage and the Jinchuriki is not close enough, the Kage may even choose to imprison the Jinchuriki. Just like the one-tail Jinchuriki of Sunagakure. It is said that it is because the relationship with the third Kazekage was not close that he was imprisoned underground for life. Only during wartime will he be restrained and utilized. Minato Namake's eyes flickered. He is not worried that Kushina will be imprisoned. With Tsukumo-sensei's character, he probably wouldn't do that. But who Kushina marries at that time is another question. Minato Namake's couldn't help but look at Sarutobi Ryo. Speaking of those who are close to the Kage, young Master Sarutobi Ryo is Tsukumo-sensei's disciple. That is to say, it is very likely that the higher-ups will match young Master Ryo with Kushina at that time. Kushina, Naruto. Minato Namake's silently clenched his fists, his heart caught in a struggle of choice. Things shouldn't have been like this. I must become the fourth Hokage. But to do that, some shady methods must be used. In the past, these things were done by Konoha's dark side. Lord Dan's. Is he going to implement darkness now? After thinking about it, Minato Namake's made a decision. After the meeting ended, Minato Namake's left the scene. Lord Dan's, please wait a moment. Minato Namake's called out to Dan's. Dan stopped and turned around. Minato Namake's would take the initiative to talk to him? That's a rare thing. Superior Ninja Minato Namake's, do you have anything to say? Dan's tone was without joy or sorrow, his attitude keeping people at distance. Koharu and Hamura want to support Minato Namake's, but he is unwilling to do so. I have some things. I want to talk to you alone. Minato Namake's and Dan's looked at each other and said what he wanted. Dan's was silent for a moment and nodded. Then, the two went to the Umbu office together. In the dark room, some conversations began here. No one knows what Minato Namake's and Dan's talked about. But Konoha, which is on the path of correcting the will of fire, must have someone walking in the darkness. This is the nature of the system of the correction route. Chapter 19. The Strongest Kazekage. The Sunagakure trip the next morning. The Konoha team was ready to go. Generally speaking, diplomatic teams have a limited number of people. Like this time, Ebizo came to Konoha alone. If a team is to be formed, it is usually 3-4 people. Sarutobi Ryo's mission this time also has the same formation. The entire diplomatic squad consists of Sarutobi Ryo, Tsukumo Hatake, Minato Namake's, and Rima Aburame. Rima Aburame? Seeing Rima Aburame suddenly appear in the team and become the last candidate, Sarutobi Ryo couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. But considering Dan's style, he is probably going to send Rima Aburame to take the opportunity to inquire or even steal the secrets of Sunagakure. The ninjas of the Aburame clan are the most suitable for this kind of thing because of the parasitic insects. This is very reasonable. Let's go. The strong-willed Sunagakure beauty, Ebizo waved her hand and took the lead in taking a step. Minato Namake's and Rima Aburame looked at each other, and in just a moment, they completed the exchange, leaving Konoha along the land of fire all the way forward. The crowd chased the stars and the moon. They successively crossed plains and hills, crossed the border of the land of fire, and then crossed the northern part of the land of rivers, entering the vast Great Sand Sea. traveling through the desert where they could get lost at any time, experiencing the drastic changes in day and night temperature. 70. Section 70. Finally, they crossed this land of death and arrived at the heart of the land of wind. Sunagakure, we're here. Yakura stopped, gazing at the massive mountain range before them. The narrow entrance in the middle was known as the Sunagakure Ikizenten. This was also the only exit for the entire Sunagakure. The village inside was surrounded by mountains, nestled in a basin. For Yakura, this was the road home, but for Sarutobi Ryo and the others, it was stepping into a foreign land. They proceeded onward. Thanks to Yakura, they faced no obstacles along the way. The unfriendly gazes of Sunagakure ninjas were cast upon them from the road. The thing called hatred, coupled with the opposition of ideologies, ultimately led to this result. Upon reaching the depths of the village, a tall earthen castle tower stood in the center, with the huge character Wind written on it. Presumably, this was the Kazekage Tower. Entering inside, Sarutobi Ryo saw a man standing in front of the window in the office. He had a head of bluish-purple spiky hair. Draped in a white robe, he looked imposing. "The people of Konoha, you've come from afar. Thank you for your hard work." The man turned around, revealing a lean and fair face. The man with the slender eyes before them was the current leader of Sunagakure, the third Kazekage, also known as the strongest Kazekage. Konoha White Fang. Before the third Kazekage could say anything, shouts rang out in the corridor outside. Chiyo-sama. After a series of shouts and thuds, a middle-aged woman appeared here. She wore a heavy robe, and her eyes revealed resentment and sorrow. "So it's you, you bastard." Clearly, this was the high-ranking official who assisted the Kazekage. The strongest puppeteer, Chiyo. "Prepare to die." Chiyo struck a pose, ready to attack. At this moment, a gaunt man with long eyebrows darted out from behind her. "Sister." Ebizo restrained his sister Chiyo from behind, and soon, Chiyo screamed and disappeared into the distance. "Everyone, I'm sorry everyone, for showing you something so unsightly." The third Kazekage smoothed things over. This disturbance did not disrupt the meeting between the two parties. Hotaki Sakumo scratched his head and tactfully avoided mentioning Chiyo's affairs. After all, he had killed her son and daughter-in-law, which always made him feel somewhat weak. "Everyone," the third Kazekage first made some official remarks. Then, he began to get down to business. What should the future relationship between Sunagakure and Konoha be like? Hotaki Sakumo scratched his head, subconsciously looking at Sarutobi Ryo. He wasn't good at politics. Killing people was fine, though. Aburame Ryoma remained silent. Namake's Minato's eyes flickered, not knowing what he was thinking. Seeing Konoha's White Fan turn his gaze to Sarutobi Ryo, the third Kazekage had also recognized the identity of the Hokage's son the moment Sarutobi Ryo entered. "You and your father looked very similar when you were young." The third Kazekage smiled slightly, showing a willingness to support the younger generation. He stared at Sarutobi Ryo, wanting to hear what kind of statement this young man, who even made Konoha's White Fang take notice, would have. "Kazekage-sama." Sarutobi Ryo nodded and began to analyze the relationship between the two parties. The Land of Fire is vast and rich in resources. Although those in power are greedy and insatiable, the next great war will inevitably not attack the Land of Wind. Why? Only an idiot wouldn't know that the Land of Wind was full of sand. Invading would be a complete waste of effort. Therefore, Konoha would most likely still focus its efforts on countries like the Land of Rain. Not bad. The third Kazekage certainly had the capacity to tolerate others. He could frankly accept the fact that the Land of Wind was barren. It could be seen from the decorations in the Kazekage's office that the previous Kazekages were all frugal people. In later generations, Raza even used magnet release to mine gold sand to subsidize the village. Poor Kazekages, so poor. As for Sunagakure, the biggest contradiction at present is the inability to satisfy the growing population and the people's desire for a better life. In these two aspects. In short, Sunagakure lacked money and land. but it didn't lack people. During the Second Shinobi World War, Sunagakure did plunder the smaller countries. But what about after they digested it? War would still break out. People will die if they don't have food. This is the simplest truth. According to Konoha's current situation and the thoughts of the rulers, it is likely that they will not agree to Sunagakure owning an extra piece of fertile land. This was not only Konoha's idea, but also the idea of other countries. Yakura snorted coldly. She thought this young master had some brilliant insights, but when they got here, it was still the same old story. The third Kazekage waved his hand at her, signaling Yakura not to rush, because the person was clearly not finished speaking. Sarutobi Ryo continued. Although the Konoha executives will not agree to Sunagakure owning extra fertile land, there are still compromise solutions. Oh, the third Kazekage became interested. This was what he wanted to hear. If it could be a win-win situation, then Sunagakure and Konoha could cooperate. To our north, both sides have a common enemy. Sarutobi Ryo looked at the military map on the wall. The image of the ninja world was clearly outlined on it. To the north of the land of wind and the land of fire, Sunagakure and Konoha's common enemy naturally referred to a Wagakure. If Kazekage-sama's side has a sensitive intelligence, you will know that a Wagakure currently has at least 15,000 ninjas or more. The third Kazekage, Yakura, Raza, Hataki Tsukumo, Namikaze Minato, Aburame Ryoma. Unbeknownst to them, Iwagakure had completed its ultimate troop buildup. They had a very terrifying combat population. Their number of ninjas was far above that of Konoha and Sunagakure. Obviously, the third Tsuchikage, Anoki, was preparing to sweep away all opponents in one fell swoop in the next war. So, isn't the situation clear? Sarutobi Ryo smiled slightly. Kazekage-sama, I think Konoha and Sunagakure need to join forces. Wouldn't it be great for everyone to eat Iwagakure's meat together at that time? Chapter 20. History change again. People must look forward. After changing the tragedies of Ringo Yuri, Hataki Tsukumo, and others, Sarutobi Ryo's heart was even more expectant of the road ahead. Now, Sarutobi Ryo was no longer confined to the original memories of the transmigrator in his mind. Instead, he was starting to create a brand new future. Then, on the third Kazekage's side, he could also use new thinking to plan the future of both parties. Even if Konoha's leadership team could not be changed at present, Sunagakure's desire to obtain new land could not be realized. But everything changes. If Konoha and Sunagakure joined forces, they could counter Iwagakure. In the future, the Third Shinobi World War would also have different results for both sides. Well, a good suggestion. The third Kazekage nodded slightly, without looking down on Sarutobi Ryo, because he was young. After all, the future of the ninja world belonged to the next generation. You have come from afar. You must be tired. Why not rest first? The specific matters I will discuss with the elders of my village. After confirming Konoha's attitude, the third Kazekage issued an order to dismiss the guests. He needed to discuss with the elders of Sunagakure before making a decision. This was understandable. 71. Section 71, however, the problem lies in the position of elder. As everyone knows, Kohor Yuditane, Hamura Mitokado, and Danzo are three turd stirs. The Sand Village isn't much better. In the original work, the number of elders in the Sand Village is as high as 10 or more. That's more than a dozen turd stirs. It's a miracle that the Sand Village is doing well. Otherwise, why would the Sand Village's upper echelons kill Pakura in the original story? It's only because after the third Kazekage died, they were afraid that Pakura would seize the position of Kazekage. It can only be said, birds of feather flock together. The Leaf Village's higher-ups are a bunch of self-seeking individuals. The Sand Village also has many troubles. The third Kazekage was able to suppress them when he was in power. But once he's gone, the hidden dangers will explode. Ryo Sarutobi nodded slightly and got up to leave. The third Kazekage watched the four figures disappear beside the door. Then, he looked at Pakura, stretched out his hand, and the metal door closed with magnet release chakra. Pakura, how credible do you think the Leaf's attitude is? As the Sand Village's hero and most capable subordinate, the third Kazekage never doubted Pakura's loyalty. This point is even above Raza, although Raza is his disciple. In fact, the third Kazekage has the intention of supporting Pakura. After all, the family forces connected by the elders are too deeply rooted. If you want to change the Sand Village, you must completely erase this decadent system. If the original plot unfolds, the Leaf's diplomatic personnel will only argue on principle and plan for the Leaf's interests. Because Ryo Sarutobi has the mindset of a Chinese person, he thinks of a win-win situation. The wings of a butterfly are beginning to change things, even affecting the third Kazekage's thinking. Kazekage-sama. Pakura instinctively wanted to say that she shouldn't trust the Leaf. However, after many days of observation and Ryo Sarutobi's words, she could see it. Although the Hokage's son doesn't have much power now, it is said that he is a disciple of the White Fang of the Leaf. After all, many experts have died at his hands, but the White Fang of the Leaf is unscathed. In this way, this Ryo Sarutobi will definitely rise to the top in the future. He may even be the fifth Hokage. From this deduction, the Sand Village really needs to carefully consider cooperating with them. Pakura, what do you think is the biggest crisis facing our Sand Village right now? The third Kazekage raised the question. Food? Money? Water? None of them. It is the elders' increasingly insatiable greed and the encroachment of their representative families on the Sand's interests. Pakura, who came from commoner background, sees this very clearly. Raza is different. He may see it clearly, but Raza himself is a representative of the nobility. He will collude with the elders and pretend to be ignorant. If he truly wants the Sand to be well, the next Kazekage must not be Raza. Well said. The third Kazekage turned around and looked out the window. Ryo, Sarutobi, and the others walked on the street, guided by the village's ninjas to rest. The Leaf has already begun to make changes, heading towards a new generation. Our Sand should also change. In the third Kazekage's heart, he has already begun to imagine the changes that the Leaf will usher in after Tsukumo Hatake becomes the fourth Hokage. He can see that the real person in charge is the White Fang of the Leaf's disciple. Ryo Sarutobi, the son of Hiruzen Sarutobi, this young man. He and his father are completely different kinds of people. The third Kazekage, who has met Hiruzen Sarutobi many times, is so sure. How can a golden carp be a thing in a pond? One day, this young man, named Ryo Sarutobi, will soar into the sky. So, how to find a turning point? The third Kazekage stood in his office and kept thinking. This thinking lasted until night. Creak. The door opened. In the deep corridor, the third Kazekage glanced at the air. Soon, he noticed some subtle changes in chakra. Who? He shouted sternly, his stern face possessing a considerable and terrifying majesty. As the head of the Sand Village and the strongest ninja, he is not afraid of anyone's challenge. Kazekage-sama. Just then, the shadows gathered and turned into a human figure. Is it you? The third Kazekage frowned slightly. The guy who appeared here is named Ryuma Aburame, one of the members of the Leaf's diplomatic team during the day. And his more famous identity is Danzo Shimura's right-hand man, the darkness of shinobi. Do you have something you want to say to me? The third Kazekage shouted. Indeed, I do. Ryuma Aburame nodded. The other party brought him a great sense of oppression, like facing a fierce lion. At any time, he could die. Does Kazekage-sama know that your death is approaching? Ryuma Aburame's light statement caused the third Kazekage to unleash his killing intent. Swish! A subtle sound rang out, and a dark creation surged towards Ryuma Aburame. It's Iron Sand. The third Kazekage, famous for his magnet release bloodline limit, can control Iron Sand. The people who want to harm you are not us, Leaf, but the ninjas in your village. When Ryuma Aburame said this, the third Kazekage's offensive stopped. In fact, he didn't originally intend to kill him, just scare him. Speak, the third Kazekage shouted. Soon, Ryuma Aburame adjusted his sunglasses and began to tell some things. Chapter 21. Kazekage-sama, Sasori is a pit. Absurd. When the third Kazekage heard that Chiyo's grandson wanted to harm him, he immediately felt amused. Chiyo is a three-dynasty elder and a loyal subject of the Sand Village. Their family is full of loyal martyrs. Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law were killed by the White Fang of the Leaf. How could a traitor appear in such a family? Kazekage-sama. Ryuma Aburame's face sank. This is the sage's prediction from Mount Maiboku, one of the three great sacred grounds. Ryuma Aburame directly stated the source of the news. The source is Minato Namikaze. Minato Namikaze, who went to Mount Maiboku and learned sage jutsu, also received a prediction from the Great Toad Sage. He told this matter to Lord Danzo and was very sure that it was true. The mission to the Sand Village was originally an ordinary diplomatic mission. Now, it has become an event that can affect the entire ninja world. The life and death of the third Kazekage, known as the strongest Kazekage, will determine many things. Not only within the sand, but may even affect the entire ninja world. So, after considering it, Lord Danzo decided to send himself here to persuade the third Kazekage. That's right, what's the harm in trying? If it fails and the third Kazekage eventually dies, the leaf will not lose out. If it succeeds and the third Kazekage survives, a powerful sand, as an enemy of the leaf, can slow down Tsukumo Hataki's steps to becoming the fourth Hokage. This is something Danzo is happy to see. Just like that, the third Kazekage and Ryuma Aburame stared at each other for a long time. 72. Section 72. After a cold snort, the third Kazekage strode away. UNV Lama's lips curled slightly. He knew. The third Kazekage was starting to believe it. The next morning, the sun rose as usual. The group who came to the Kazekage's office again found a handsome red-haired teenager next to the third Kazekage. Sasori of the Red Sand. Although he is a teenager, he is also a Shota. Sarutobi Ryo sized up the other party's delicate face, a slight smile with a hint of ruthlessness. Just like he could take out a knife and stab you twice at any time. Of course, Sasori did not have the title of Sasori of the Red Sand at this time. The source of the title is that after Sasori defected, he killed his former companions who were chasing him, causing blood to dye the yellow sand red. Hence the name Sasori of the Red Sand. But look at the way he is closely following the third Kazekage. Probably almost there. Well, the third Kazekage's death anniversary. I only hope that the third Kazekage can see that even if it is the third generation of sand, there is a will that is not of the sand. From the perspective of an opponent, Sarutobi Ryo believes that he has no need to remind the third Kazekage. But if you consider that the two sides really start to form an alliance, helping each other and benefiting each other, then a strong Kazekage brings a stable cooperation, which is many times stronger than Raza. Everyone, please have some tea. Sasori reached out, smiled, and motioned everyone to drink tea. Hataki Tsukumo blinked his eyes, feeling a little overwhelmed. The son of the couple who were killed is standing in front of him, and he is even inviting him to drink tea. The other party is still from a family that uses poison. This. It's not too late to drink tea later. Please tell us the result, Lord Kazekage. Sarutobi Ryo's words directly relieved Hataki Tsukumo and also avoided the possibility of everyone being poisoned. The third Kazekage certainly wouldn't do this. Sasori, this ruthless character is not necessarily. When you're out, it is absolutely no problem to be careful. Well, yesterday I discussed with everyone, and the elders believe that we can start the precedent of cooperation with Konoha, but for true cooperation, Konoha needs to take the initiative to show something. The third Kazekage stared at Sarutobi Ryo. You started the matter, so you have to take responsibility for the problem. Since Konoha believes that a Wagakure is our common enemy, then show your sincerity. The third Kazekage walked to the map and pointed to the border of the Land of Wind. Recently, Iwagakure teams have been rampaging in our country's borders. I hope that the Konoha ninjas can join hands with our Sunagakure ninjas to wipe them out. What do you think? The two parties of Sunagakure and Konoha act together to kill the Iwagakure squad. On the surface, it is just a cooperative mission at most. But politically, it is to let Iwagakure know that Sunagakure and Konoha have joined forces. Once Iwagakure feels that Konoha and Sunagakure have formed an alliance, they will inevitably adjust their subsequent strategies. If the Third Ninja World War breaks out, their offensive will become much more cautious, and it is even possible that the situation will go in an unknown direction because of this. And all this is established because of the existence of the third Kazekage. If the third Kazekage dies, Raza succeeds to the throne, and he, who is still young, cannot suppress those elders and families. Raza will inevitably conduct interest exchanges and compromises. In that case, even if Sunagakure forms an alliance with Konoha, it cannot be called a strong alliance. For Sunagakure village, the existence of the third Kazekage as an individual is really of too much significance. But if the third Kazekage survives, Konoha will usher in a strong Sunagakure ally/enemy. It is predictable that they will turn against each other one day. We don't want to invade others, but we won't be bullied by others either. We hope to win-win with Sunagakure, but we will also be wary of Sunagakure and not be afraid of Sunagakure. This is the real pattern. If you're afraid of the other party's strength, you will directly destroy the other party. Then what is the difference between Senju, Tobirama, Shimura Danzo, and others who are afraid of the Uchiha clan? Thinking of this, Sarutobi Ryo nodded. Lord Kazekage, I accept this mission. Sarutobi Ryo used I instead of we. Sarutobi Ryo knew that he could not represent turned sleeping Koharu and Mikoto Hamura, but he can represent himself. I, in the capacity of the son of the Hokage and the captain of the 6th squad of the Konoha Umbu and the Konoha Jonin, am willing to try to reach a mutually beneficial alliance with Sunagakure. Sarutobi Ryo's statement made the third Kazekage concentrate for a moment. Afterwards, he took a deep breath and couldn't help but admire the mind and courage of the young man in front of him. If the situation continues to develop like this, Konoha will definitely become more prosperous. The strengthening of Sunagakure, the prosperity of Konoha, a win-win situation. Maybe it really is a good strategy. But before that, some moths inside Sunagakure village. It's time to clean them up. By the way, Lord Kazekage, my father has a secret letter that I want to give to Lord Kazekage. Please take a look. Sarutobi Ryo took out the scroll that he had prepared long ago. What is written inside is, of course, about a certain red-haired Shota puppeteer. Just pointing out his identity as the captain of the 6th squad of Umbu is not aimless. On the surface, it is Umbu, but when the third Kazekage hears it, he will think of Shimura Danzo, the darkness of the ninja, and his omnipresent root. The arrival of UNV Longma will deepen this impression. Then, the people of Root, as spies, lurking in Sunagakure, getting some information, it's very reasonable, right? For example, Sasori, the 3rd generation of sand, is actually a pit cargo. Secret letter? Minato Namikaze on the side was slightly stunned. But he didn't expect that Lord Hokage would give the secret letter to young Master Sarutobi. According to the original future predicted by the Great Toad Sage, this did not happen. Lord Kazekage. Sasori on the side wanted to take a look for the Kazekage, first to show his loyalty. The third Kazekage signaled that it was okay. Then, he took the scroll carelessly and unfolded it generously. I saw only a line of large characters in the scroll. Lord Kazekage, please be careful of Sasori. The third Kazekage watched silently for a few seconds, then put away the scroll and crushed it into powder with sand iron. Then the powder was thrown into the brazier that was about to burn out. I have received it. Then, next, I will send my ninjas to accompany your village. Chapter 22. Sunagakure Konoha joins hands. The son of Tsuchikage, will the third Kazekage really be wary of Sasori? Will history take off in a different direction from now on? Sarutobi Ryo doesn't know. But as long as you do what you should do, then you will have no regrets, right, Senior Nawaki? A few days later, the fully armed crowd gathered the team at the Itachi line at the entrance of Sunagakure. The Sunagakure team, led by Yakura, and the Konoha team gathered. Yamanaka Kei, Hyuga, the Yumino couple, and others are also in the Konoha ranks. After obtaining the permission of the third Kazekage, Sarutobi Ryo asked Yamanaka Kei and the others who were stationed at the border between the Land of Rivers and the Land of Wind to rush over. Except for Hyuga, who is not from the Umbu. It can be said that Sarutobi Ryo normally exercised his authority as the captain of the 6th Squad of Umbu. Hatake Sakumo also gathered some Umbu members. The group of dozens of people from Sunagakure and Konoha was mighty and imposing. This scene couldn't help but remind Sarutobi Ryo of the scene during the Second Ninja World War. Departure. Yakura waved his arm, and the Sunagakure village team immediately shouted. Their eyes were fanatical, obviously full of confidence in Yakura. Yakura, who climbed up from the bottom, has a completely no less appeal in Sunagakure village than Minato Namikaze in Konoha in the original book. Soon, the team set off mightily and headed for the northern border of the Land of Wind. 2 days later, in an oasis in the northern part of the Land of Wind, a team of Iwagakure ninjas are sitting in the house to rest. During the day, the sun outside is as hot as an oven, which makes the Iwagakure ninjas reluctant to move. In fact, their action plan these days is indeed to act after sunset and rest the team during the day. Land of Wind. Everywhere is desert, but in these deserts, there are a large number of oases. The people of the Land of Wind live in these oases. The continuous harassment destroyed several oases, but not much was plundered. This is irrelevant. What is important is to let the troops see blood and maintain their sensitivity to combat, even in peacetime. Taking this opportunity to draw out the Sunagakure ninjas, to fight them and hone the team is the real purpose. 73. Section 73 at midday. As the sun reached its zenith, the leader of the Iwagakure Jonin, carrying a sheathed longsword, narrowed his eyes calmly. Unlike his sweat-drenched subordinates beside him, his breathing was so steady, his expression utterly indifferent. The others, seeing this, cast envious glances. It said that Lord Red Earth's blade possesses unique freezing properties. It seems the rumors are true. The Iwagakure Jonin, named Red Earth, had fair skin and a well-proportioned physique. Compared to his sturdier comrades, his body could be described as slender. Of course, this was only relative. Clutching a 3-foot short sword, a faint chill emanated from his scabbard. It was this chill that dispelled the heat for him. Different lands nurture different people. Most ninjas from Iwagakure have the primary affinity of earth. Among them, there are also strong individuals who use swords and blades. For example, in the original work, during the Third Shinobi World War, in just the parts drawn in the manga, the young Kakashi directly encountered 2 high-level Iwagakure Jonin who used swords. After clashing, Kakashi almost died twice. Once, he was saved by Minato Namikaze using the Flying Thunder God technique. The other time, he narrowly avoided the crisis with the cooperation of Obito, who awakened his Sharingan. And the Red Earth before them had an even more resounding identity. It said that Lord Sasuke intends to cultivate Lord Red Earth, valuing him even more than Lord Yellow Earth. In the hidden history, there are many unrecorded events. In the original work, Sarutobi's original form only appeared on the cover page. Tsunade's parents were not even mentioned once, but not mentioning them doesn't mean they never existed. After all, Lord Red Earth is Lord Sasuke's most beloved youngest son. Someone sighed. Red Earth's older brother was Yellow Earth, and he was the youngest son of the third Sasuke, Noki. Red Earth did not inherit his father's powerful physique like his older brother, Yellow Earth. Therefore, he devoted more energy to exploring his other strengths. In the end, Red Earth developed formidable taijutsu/swordsmanship skills. His sharp attacks and swift movements struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. And to make his second son's combat power even stronger, the third Sasuke, Noki, specially sought out a sword for him. This 3-foot-long sword emitted a faint cold light and possessed extreme toughness and cutting power. Its unique, icy property could even freeze the enemy's movements and even their thoughts. Just as the resting group was discussing things animatedly, outside, the sentry on guard duty rang the bell. In the oasis, the large bell, originally used by the natives to summon the villagers, had now become the source of the invaders' alarm. Hearing the bell ring, Red Earth instantly opened his eyes. The others also stood up from the ground one after another, looking outside. Soon, someone ran in and reported, "Lord Red Earth, it's bad. People from Konoha and Sunagakure are attacking." Konoha and Sunagakure. Everyone was surprised by this news. It's Pakura of the Scorch Release and the recently rising Black Reaper, Sarutobi Ryo, the son of the Hokage. If Red Earth had been expressionless before, then when he heard that the Hokage's son had also appeared here, he immediately understood that Sunagakure and Konoha had likely formed an alliance. This was a major event that had to be reported. You return to the village immediately and report this matter to Lord Sasuke. Red Earth looked at an accompanying Umbu member beside him. This Iwagakure Umbu nodded and immediately disappeared into the ground. Using Earth Release stealth, many Iwagakure ninjas could freely travel between the Earth. Son of the Hokage, Red Earth then looked outside. Recently, I've always heard about his deeds. As an Umbu, he always shows his face. How flamboyant. After joining the Umbu, Sarutobi Ryo almost never wore a mask. He himself was always dressed in black. In addition, every time he attacked, it inevitably brought death. Over time, the nickname Black Reaper spread like wildfire. In the eyes of many, acting as an Umbu without wearing a mask was an extremely flamboyant display. Let me witness whether he really has some skills or is just deceiving the world. What Red Earth and the others didn't know was Konoha White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake, was obediently wearing an Umbu mask hidden in the crowd. If he knew that Konoha White Fang was also present, he would have been much more cautious and might even have chosen an orderly retreat. Chapter 23. Two Sons of Kage. It was expected that the people of Sunagakure would come. After all, they had been committing crimes on the border this week. But it was unexpected that Konoha could connect with Sunagakure. Red Earth came outside, thinking as he walked, his face very calm. Pakura's threat is greater. The Hokage's son is unknown. Because he had not fought Sarutobi Ryo, Red Earth did not know what Sarutobi Ryo's true strength was. I've only heard that he possesses the ability to use Ice Release. Interesting. In addition to the Sarutobi clan's innate divine strength and the 7 attributes, the Hokage's son, Sarutobi Ryo, could also use Ice Release. This was confirmed information. I'll fight him. Red Earth immediately looked at his companions and assigned a strategy for dealing with the enemy. On the other side, Sarutobi Ryo and Pakura also led the group into the oasis. After killing a sentry responsible for guarding, the opponent triggered the alarm. Looking at the Iwagakure team gathering in the distance, comparing the strength of the two sides. Obviously, our side had the advantage in strength. A bunch of rabble. Pakura waved his hand. Everyone move out. Oh! The Sunagakure ninjas shouted and rushed towards the enemy formation. Pakura took the lead, leading by example. Sarutobi Ryo also acted together and rushed to the front of the team. The first round of engagement was the throwing of ninja tools. While running, both sides threw shurikens, kunai, and other flying tools at each other. The originally concentrated team quickly dispersed, and the clanging sound was endless, different from the fighting methods of the samurai of that year. The ninja's evasion ability was very strong, so the formation was usually scattered. It was obviously 2 platoons fighting, but they forcibly pulled out a long line. After leaving a few corpses behind, a figure who didn't even bother to dodge caught Sarutobi Ryo's attention. The other party held a long sword, the blade not even unsheathed, and casually blocked the flying tools flying towards him. Soon, Sarutobi Ryo discovered that the other party was coming for him. With the blade unsheathed, the other party threw the discarded scabbard fiercely towards him. Sarutobi Ryo slapped it away, shaking off the scabbard, and immediately engaged in battle with the other party. Son of the Hokage, son of the Tsuchikage, the two second generations recognized each other's identities. A startling fighting intent ignited in Sarutobi Ryo's eyes, and Red Earth was unwilling to give in. Both were sons of Kage, symbols of the faces of the two Kage. If they didn't perform well, it would not only tarnish the village's name, but also make their respective fathers lose face. This also gave Sarutobi Ryo and Red Earth's growth trajectories a surprising similarity. Both honed their strength through arduous training. Without much conversation, just one look was enough to see each other's similarities. Chi, the 3-foot-long green blade, was swung. The cold air surged above, and under the scorching midday desert sun, the cold air emitted by the green blade even condensed water droplets in the twisted heatwave air. Just at first sight, Sarutobi Ryo understood that this was not an ordinary blade. Chi. Sarutobi Ryo did not hesitate to take off the large sword behind him. This 1.2-meter-long sword was the spoils of war obtained from the storm-released ninja, Sarui, last time. In terms of thickness and width, it completely surpassed the blade in Red Earth's hand. Clang! The two swords clashed, sparks flying. 74. Section 74 at close range. Sarutobi Ryo could clearly see the details of this sword. The blade's surface reflected faint frost patterns, like a clear spring, giving off a sharp, freezing sensation with its cold gleam. There is a difference in quality and sharpness between weapons. The King Feng sword's blade had embedded itself into a portion of the greatsword's blade. To be precise, the King Feng sword had cut through the greatsword. What a sharp blade! Sarutobi Ryo's eyes widened slightly, feeling even more that this sword of his was no ordinary item. You should know that Sarui's greatsword was made of high-quality steel, easily capable of cutting ordinary kunai. Yet, it had been cut open by the opponent's blade. Whoosh! Akatsuchi quickly retreated backward. Although it seemed like he had the upper hand, in reality, as soon as they exchanged blows, he discovered that Sarutobi Ryo's strength was astonishingly great. What amazing arm strength! That greatsword, by visual estimation, weighed dozens of kilograms. Yet this son of the Hokage wielded it as if it were a toy. Akatsuchi, whose arm was slightly numb, immediately used a ninjutsu that every Iwagakure ninja knew. Earth Release. Stone Fist Technique. Crack, crack, crack. A layer of earth-brown color rapidly covered Akatsuchi's arm. This technique could increase the user's defense and attack power. It was equivalent to covering the arm with a layer of powerful armor. In the original story, this technique was shown many times. For example, Noki used the Stone Fist to smash the second Mizukage, Zuki Jinjetsu's Summon Beast. Another example was when Kitsuchi punched and sent flying the six-tailed, transformed Kinkaku. But Akatsuchi's Stone Fist technique, after slight adjustments, was slightly different. His arm, now, looked like it was covered with a thin layer of armor. The increase in defense and attack power might not be very large, but possessed the buffering force of clay. It could effectively dissipate most of the opponent's power when fighting against those with great strength. After using the Stone Fist technique, Akatsuchi attacked again. This time, the aura around him became completely different. This meant he was starting to get serious. The shouts of battle on the battlefield never ceased. Sarutobi Ryo and Akatsuchi completely ignored the battles around them. The two of them exchanged blows, constantly clashing. Sarutobi Ryo had Hatake Sakomo as his swordsmanship teacher. Akatsuchi had also been trained by many swordsmanship masters of Iwagakure. Both of their taijutsu skills were quite astonishing. The overflowing killing intent alone made others unable to help but retreat.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on EuroAudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.